Chapter 36 Xingchen Sect Visits Immortal Emperor Guard Cards. At this moment, just as Luo Xingchen was looking at her husband with a shy face, Qing'er's voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. Reporting to Empress, the Grand Elder sent word that the Xingchen sect has arrived. Hearing Qing'er's words, Luo Xingchen frowned slightly and said, I know, they brought disciples again, haven't they? Outside the door, hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Qing'er's voice was filled with anger as she said, reporting to Empress, the Xingchen sect has brought even more disciples this time, and they are all in the Thunder Tribulation realm and Mayana realm. More than 10 disciples in total. Hearing Qing'er's words, Luo Xingchen's brows furrowed instantly, and she spoke to Qing'er outside. Understand. How the Grand Elder, take them to Lianyan Hall, and entertain them well. At this moment, Qing'er outside the door pouted, her face full of anger. Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, she sighed helplessly, responded, and then turned and left. At this moment, Luo Xingchen, with slightly furrowed brows, was about to get up and quietly leave, but Xingchen, who was pretending to sleep, pulled her into his arms. Looking at the awakened Xingchen, Luo Xingchen's brows instantly relaxed, and with a joyful expression, she softly said, Husband, you're awake? Looking at the joyful Luo Xingchen, Xingchen's eyes were full of doting affection, and he softly said, Wife, just now, I saw your brows were tightly furrowed. Was it because of the Xingchen sect? Looking at the doting affection in her husband's eyes and hearing his words, Luo Xingchen nodded slightly. The Xingchen sect is a human race force bordering our Yao race territory. Its power is considered strong among the human race. In ancient times, it was once one of the top forces in the divine wilderness continent. However, for some unknown reason, it gradually declined, but a lean camel is still bigger than a horse. The Xingchen sect is still among the top forces. Because it's very close to the Yao race territory, the Xingchen sect often brings its disciples to visit. They say it's a visit, but in reality, it's just to let their disciples come and spar. Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Xingchen smiled slightly and said, Wife, it's only beneficial for the Yao race and human race to have more contact and sparring. Why do I see your brows furrowed, wife? Hearing her husband's words, Luo Xingchen also smiled helplessly, looking at Xingchen, and softly said, Husband, at first, Luo Xingchen also thought that sparring with the human race would be beneficial for the Yao race disciples. So when the Xingchen sect came to the Yao race, the entire Yao race was very happy and entertained them warmly. But the Xingchen sect used the excuse of sparring to gamble with us, and they had a condescending attitude. How could the Yao race disciples endure such provocation? It just so happens that the disciples they bring to spar are all very strong. Each time, our Yao race loses the competition, and because of this, we've lost many spirit stones. The Xingchen sect treats the Yao race as a big ATM where they can freely obtain spirit stones, coming once every so often. Moreover, it's always sparring between disciples. Our Yao race disciples have just transformed, and their strength is mostly in the Golden Core realm. How can they be a match for their Thunder Tribulation realm and Mahayana realm disciples? This is also a shortcoming of our Yao race. Although Yao race disciples have strong physical bodies and can even defeat those in the Soul Transformation realm with their powerful physique, they are no match for human race disciples who are 2 realms higher. Therefore, they have already lost to the Xingchen sect multiple times. This time, the Xingchen sect is coming again. They must have seen the strange celestial phenomena that occurred in the Yao race these past few days, thinking that some treasure has appeared in the Yao race, and they want to use this as an excuse to take advantage of us. Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Xingchen understood. It seemed this Xingchen sect wasn't good news. This was practically outright robbery. As if thinking of something, Xingchen smiled and said, Wife, our newly transformed disciples have all broken through to the Thunder Tribulation realm. Even against those in the Mahayana realm, they can put up a fight. This time, the Xingchen sect probably won't get what they want. Hearing her husband's words, Luo Xingchen was suddenly stunned, as if she had just remembered something. Her face suddenly became excited, and the corners of her mouth curled up. Luo Xingchen was so angry thinking about the Xingchen sect that I actually forgot about this. Thankfully, husband reminded me. Now all our Yao race disciples are no weaker than any other force's disciples. This time, we must make the Xingchen sect bleed heavily and vent our anger. After Luo Xingchen finished speaking, she stood up directly, revealing her perfect figure. Seeing her husband's mischievous smile, Luo Xingchen gave him a charming glare. After tidying up, she immediately said to Xingchen, Husband, Luo Xingchen will go to Lianyan Hall to meet the Xingchen sect first. If you like, you can go and watch after you get up. She then impatiently headed towards Lianyan Hall. Watching his wife's hurried appearance, Xingchen rarely saw Luo Qingshan behave so unsteadily in front of outsiders. He smiled helplessly, thinking that the Xiantian sect had really offended Luo Qingshan deeply. This time, the Xiantian sect would probably be in for a tough time. Xingchen lay on the bed, recalling the beautiful flute music from last night, a gentle smile playing on his lips, his heart filled with warmth. He got up, tidied himself, and came to the study window, feeling the immortal spiritual qi in the Yao race, which had increased several times. Looking out the window at the rapidly growing vegetation and various spirit beasts due to the increased immortal spiritual qi, Xingchen felt a sense of accomplishment in his heart. He also contributed to all of this. Remembering that he hadn't signed in today, Xingchen directly said to the system, "System, start today's sign in." Ding, the system is signing in. Sign in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. 1,000,000 supreme immortal stones, which have been stored in the system space for the host. Ding, the system is signing in. Sign in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. 1,000,000 bottles of supreme divine wine, which have been stored in the system space for the host. Ding, the system is signing in. Sign in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. 10 Immortal Emperor Guard cards. Immortal Emperor Guard card. After the host uses it, an unparalleled powerhouse in the Immortal Emperor realm will directly appear, absolutely loyal to the host, capable of doing anything for the host, and obeying any of the host's commands. A series of pleasant sounds rang in Xingchen's ears. When he heard about the Immortal Emperor Guard cards rewarded by the system, Xingchen actually jumped up in excitement. 10 Immortal Emperor Guard cards were equivalent to 10 Immortal Emperor powerhouses. These were 10 Immortal Emperor powerhouses, not just any common goods. Looking at the millions of supreme immortal stones in the system space, and the Immortal Emperor Guard cards emitting dazzling divine light, Xingchen suddenly had a bold idea. He would find an opportunity to visit the human race, and perhaps the Great Yin Dynasty's auction would be a good chance. Thinking of this, Xingchen's eyes emitted a shocking intent, and a terrifying aura, like that of an ancient emperor, emanated from his body. That domineering aura, where everyone stood while he alone sat, even made the surrounding space tremble slightly. At this moment, Xingchen was like a domineering emperor, sweeping across the divine wilderness and suppressing all ages. Chapter 37. Breaking Through, Reaching the Peak, Nie Jinbei's Schemes. At this moment, Xingchen looked at the millions of top-grade immortal stones in the system space, and the Great Emperor Guard card that emitted dazzling divine light. A bold idea sprouted in Xingchen's mind. Having experienced his previous life, Xingchen deeply understood the importance of strength. This strength not only included his own power, but also other factors. If it were solely his personal strength, Xingchen could easily crush the entire divine wilderness continent. Looking at the beautiful scenery of the Yao race outside the window, an unprecedented impulse arose in Xingchen's heart. In his previous life, he had been diligent and hardworking, yet in the end he was still harmed by his closest kin because he lacked powerful strength. Now that he had been reborn and possessed everything he wanted to protect, he would surely ascend to the peak, leading his beloved to overlook all mountains. At this moment, Xingchen unconsciously exuded majestic dominance, like an ancient deity, sweeping across the divine wilderness and suppressing all ages. For now, let's start with this Xiantian sect. Looking at the scenery outside the window, Xingchen's eyes emitted a determined gaze, and he thought to himself. The scene shifts to Lianyan Hall. An arrogant old man was sitting there comfortably, as if he were in his own sect. Around him, dozens of Xiantian sect disciples all looked arrogant, as if they were the most formidable in the world. Feeling the several-fold increase in the immortal spirit qi of the Yao race, the white-haired old man secretly thought. It seems the sect master's prediction was indeed correct. In the past few days within the Yao race, heaven and earth phenomena have frequently appeared, and the Tao has manifested. Something must have happened, otherwise, the immortal spirit qi wouldn't have increased so much. This level of richness is already comparable to the small world where the Xiantian sect old ancestor resides. Moreover, the medicinal pills sold by the Yao race recently, although only first-grade medicinal pills, are extremely potent, comparable to the third-grade medicinal pills of Xingchen Palace, yet their price is very cheap. These are medicinal pills that have never appeared in the entire divine wilderness continent. This trip to the Yao race, in addition to making a huge profit, is also to inquire about the origin of these medicinal pills. If I can get my hands on the pill formula, that would be even better. Haha, the Yao race are naturally beast kin, yet they foolishly try to emulate the human race, overestimating themselves. Although they undergo the lightning tribulation of transformation and can take human form, making them indistinguishable from humans, their essence is still that of beasts. With a slight trick, this old man can make them hand over a large amount of spirit stones for their so-called face. This time, not only will this old man return loaded, but I will also make them willingly hand over the pill formula. With the pill formula, there will be endless spirit stones, and then the Xingchen sect disciples will become even stronger. Especially Saint, whose innate luck is heaven-defying, having unexpectedly obtained the legacy of an ancient giant and possessing the domineering and boundless heavenly emperor's sacred body. At a young age, he was already taken in by the old ancestor and entered the small world for cultivation. I heard from the sect master that Saint's strength has now broken through the profound immortal realm, reaching the golden immortal realm. Coupled with his incomparably domineering heavenly emperor's sacred body, even among the disciples of the most top-tier forces, he is at the very peak. By then, with Saint leading, Xingchen sect will surely return to its supreme glory of ancient times. Thinking of this, the white-haired old man couldn't help but chuckle. This made the dozens of Xingchen sect disciples behind him understand. They thought the Grand Elder must have come up with another way to obtain more spirit stones from the Yao race. And the white-haired old man was none other than the Grand Elder of Xingchen sect, Xingchen, who was an immortal sovereign realm expert. Suddenly, a black-robed figure appeared in Lianyan Hall. It was Wei Donglai, the guard leader of the Demon Empress, Luo Xingchen. He glanced at Xingchen, who was sitting there, and spoke. Elder Nya, the Demon Empress invites all of you to follow this lord to the Cloud Peak Arena. The Demon Empress and the various Yao race elders are already waiting there. Seeing the black-robed figure, Xingchen recognized Wei Donglai. After all, he had visited the Yao race several times, and he knew the Demon Empress's guard leader. Hearing Wei Donglai's words, Xingchen smiled slightly and said, Leader Wei, long time no see. Your strength has become even greater. This old man didn't even notice Leader Wei's appearance. I'm truly impressed. Hearing Xingchen's words, Wei Donglai's eyes flickered with an unusual light, and he merely said softly, Elder Nya, please. Seeing the unusual light flickering in Wei Donglai's eyes and hearing his words, Xingchen frowned slightly. If it were before, Wei Donglai would have exchanged a few polite words, and then, after a round of praise from him, he would have proudly said a few more sentences, making it very possible for Xingchen to extract a lot of information from him. Now, Wei Donglai only responded with a single please, and the unusual light in his eyes made Xingchen's heart stir slightly. Finally, he smiled and nodded, then got up and led the Xingchen sect disciples towards the Cloud Peak Arena. At this moment, around a massive arena on the golden grandstands, countless Yao race disciples were already seated. In front of the arena, the Demon Empress Luo Xingchen also sat calmly in the main seat, waiting for the Xingchen sect members to arrive. After a short while, Luo Xingchen saw the Xingchen sect members, led by Wei Donglai, arrive below her position. Looking at the exquisitely beautiful Demon Empress, sitting calmly and exuding terrifying immortal emperor pressure, Xingchen and the Xingchen sect disciples dared not look directly and immediately bowed to Luo Xingchen. This bow was a sign of respect for an immortal emperor powerhouse. Seeing Xingchen below, Luo Xingchen's majestic voice rang out. Elder Nya, there's no need for formalities. Please be seated. Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Xingchen then led the Xingchen sect disciples to sit on the grandstands below. On the grandstands, immortal tea and spirit fruits were already prepared. After Xingchen sat down, he eagerly spoke. Demon Empress, this time this old man has brought Xingchen sect disciples to the Yao race for sparring and exchange. Should we proceed directly according to the rules set before? Seeing Xingchen's impatient look after just sitting down, Luo Xingchen's lips curled slightly, as if she had thought of something amusing, and she said, Xingchen sect has come from afar as guests, so let Elder Nya set the rules first. Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, a gleam of successful scheming flashed in Xingchen's eyes. He chuckled and said, Since that's the case, let's stick to the old rules. However, this time, this old man has been entrusted by the sect master, hoping to cooperate with the Yao race. Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Xingchen instantly had an idea. She smiled slightly and asked, Cooperation? How does a master of Xingchen sect wish to cooperate with the Yao race? Hearing Luo Xingchen's words, Xingchen also smiled slightly and said, The medicinal pills sold by the Wandan Pavilion recently established by the Yao race. We hope that Xingchen sect could be the exclusive agent. As a top force of a human race, Xingchen sect can definitely help the Yao race's 3 types of medicinal pills quickly dominate the human race market. Of course, if the Demon Empress is willing, Xingchen sect can also purchase the pill formula outright from the Yao race. For the subsequent refining of medicinal pills, Xingchen sect can also purchase various medicinal ingredients from the Yao race. What do you think, Demon Empress? Hearing Niezhenbei's words, all the surrounding Yao race disciples were furious. This Xingchen sect was simply shameless. The Yao race's medicinal pills came from the emperor and had nothing to do with Xingchen sect. They immediately wanted to become an agent and even wanted to buy the pill formula. This was simply wishful thinking. Hearing Niezhenbei's words, Luo Xingchen understood. Let's discuss the matter of the medicinal pills separately after the disciples' sparring has concluded. Hearing the Demon Empress's words, Niezhenbei also knew that this matter could not be rushed. It seemed he could only try the sect master's method. He then smiled slightly and said, "Since that's the case, this old man has a request. For the competition between disciples this time, we will only have one match, but this old man hopes to add some more stakes." "Oh, what kind of stakes? How big are the stakes?" "The Yao race will accept them all. If the Yao race were to name the stakes, I'm afraid Xingchen sect wouldn't dare to accept." At this moment, a white-robed figure slowly walked towards the Cloud Peak arena. Seeing this white-robed figure, the eyes of the Yao race disciples on the grandstands all showed reverence. And Niezhenbei, hearing the voice, turned to look. It was a young man, handsome in appearance and refined in temperament, like an immortal from the 9 heavens descended to the mortal world. Seeing this man, Niezhenbei frowned slightly and thought to himself, "What a fine young master, as elegant as jade." Chapter 38. An astonishing bet, the arrogant Xingchen Palace. At this moment, looking at the white-robed figure, Niezhenbei frowned slightly, thinking to himself, "What a jade-like young master." Luo Xingchen, sitting in the main seat, had a smile on her lips and her eyes were full of tenderness. Looking at the man in white robes who had arrived, Niezhenbei discovered that this person was actually of a human race, and his strength had only reached the innate realm. He couldn't help but think to himself, "Who is this person? What a big breath." The next moment, a scene that shocked everyone from the Xingchen sect appeared. All the Yao race disciple and the Yao race powerhouses in the Void Realm respectfully spoke to the man in white robes, saying, "Greetings, Emperor! Greetings, Emperor!" The man in white robes was actually the husband of the Demon Empress, because only the husband of the Empress was qualified to be called Emperor by the Yao race. Hearing the words of the Yao race people, Niezhenbei remained calm on the surface, but was extremely shocked in his heart. The marriage of the Demon Empress, with the great Tao personally arriving to congratulate, had shocked countless forces who secretly investigated but ultimately found nothing. Rumors even circulated from Xingchen Palace, saying that the Empress's husband was a human race member. Other forces, knowing the character of Xingchen Palace, scoffed at this. But they never expected that the rumors from Xingchen Palace were true. The husband of the Demon Empress was indeed a human race member. However, after seeing his strength, Niezhenbei secretly rejoiced, and all the Xingchen sect disciple looked on with mockery and jealousy. "So, it's the Demon Clan Emperor. This old man offers his respects." Looking at the young man before him, a barely perceptible hint of mockery flashed deep within Niezhenbei's eyes. An innate realm ant who got lucky and became the Demon Clan Emperor doesn't know how to hide his identity properly. Now he's even speaking boastfully and uttering wild words. He's indeed too young. However, Xingchen seemed not to have heard Niezhenbei's words, walking past him with a calm expression, completely ignoring Niezhenbei. At this moment, all the Xingchen sect disciples showed anger, but a knowing glint flashed in Niezhenbei's eyes, and he remained indifferent in his heart. Xingchen came to Luo Xingchen's side, raised his hand to all the Yao race people, signaling for everyone to sit down. Luo Xingchen gave her husband a charming glance, her lips slightly curved, and spoke to Niezhenbei. "Elder Nia, as my husband said, whatever additional stakes the Xingchen sect wishes to add, the Yao race will accept." Looking at the calm Demon Empress, whose eyes flickered with an inexplicable light, Niezhenbei suddenly had a bad premonition. As an immortal sovereign powerhouse, such a feeling would never appear easily. Its sudden appearance now made Niezhenbei somewhat puzzled. He turned to look at the Yao race disciple on the viewing platform. This glance was startling. Niezhenbei was instantly shocked, his face revealing disbelief. Those Yao race disciple on the viewing platform were all of the Thunder Tribulation Realm cultivation, and there were even several Mahayana Realm disciple among them. Seeing this, Niezhenbei finally turned to look at the Demon Empress. Only then did he understand the meaning of the inexplicable light in the Empress's eyes. Although Niezhenbei was shocked, a hint of undetectable smugness flashed deep in his eyes, as if he had seen through everything, and he thought to himself, This must be the confidence of that girl, Luo Qingshan. She thinks that with all her disciple having broken through to the Thunder Tribulation realm, they can surely defeat the Xingchen sect disciple. However, something must have happened to the Yao race. Otherwise, it's impossible for all the disciple to have broken through to the Thunder Tribulation realm right after transforming. According to previous situations, Yao race disciple would at most reach the soul transformation realm right after transforming. And the current concentration of immortal spiritual qi in the Yao race is no less than that of any top-tier force's small world. I must report this to the sect master when I return. Looking at Luo Qingshan's confident expression, Niezhenbei felt smug, but on the surface, he feigned shock. Since that's the case, this old man will simply turn their plan against them and solve the problem once and for all, letting them understand that when it comes to strategy, the human race are the ancestors of schemes. Although the fact that all the Yao race disciple had broken through to the Thunder Tribulation realm shocked Niezhenbei. This time, among the Xingchen sect's young disciple, there was one immortal realm disciple. Niezhenbei was 100% confident in this spar. After glancing at Xingchen, Niezhenbei spoke with a proud expression. Empress, since that's the case, this old man will speak directly. The Xingchen sect is willing to add 2 grade 4 pill formulas as stakes, along with 100 million top-grade spirit stones. I wonder if the Yao race dares to accept. As soon as Niezhenbei's words fell, the entire Cloud Peak arena instantly erupted in gasps of surprise, and even the Xingchen sect disciple were shocked. 2 grade 4 pill formulas and 100 million top-grade spirit stones. Such stakes could be considered a huge gamble. These 2 grade 4 pill formulas were obtained by the saint from the legacy of an ancient giant. Their value was immeasurable. The Xingchen sect master had specifically instructed Niezhenbei to bring them this time to the Yao race. And the 100 million top-grade spirit stones were precisely to make the Yao race also put out 3 grade 1 pill formulas as stakes. With an immortal realm disciple supporting them, even if an unexpected situation arose for the Yao race, the immortal realm disciple could ensure everything was foolproof. At this moment, hearing Niezhenbei's words, a glint flashed in Luo Qingshan's eyes, while Xingchen smiled, thinking to himself, it seems the Xingchen sect came prepared this time, setting such astonishing stakes. They must have made thorough preparations. At this moment, before Luo Qingshan could speak, Xingchen smiled faintly and said, since the Xingchen sect is willing to give so many top-grade spirit stones and 2 grade 4 medicinal pills to the Yao race, how could the Yao race not accept? The Yao race accepts these stakes. Hearing Xingchen's words, a smile appeared in Niezhenbei's eyes, and he turned to look at the Demon Empress, Luo Qingshan. Seeing Niezhenbei look at her, Luo Qingshan smiled faintly and said, the Emperor can represent the entire Yao race. Since the Emperor has spoken, the Yao race accepts. We are also willing to put out 100 million top-grade spirit stones and 3 grade 1 pill formulas as stakes for this spar. What do you think, Elder Nya? Seeing Niezhenbei look at her, Luo Qingshan smiled faintly and said, the Emperor can represent the entire Yao race. Since the Emperor has spoken, the Yao race accepts. We are also willing to put out 100 million top-grade spirit stones and 3 grade 1 pill formulas as stakes for this spar. What do you think, Elder Nya? Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Niezhenbei smiled slightly and said, since the Empress has spoken, this old man naturally agrees. After Niezhenbei finished speaking, he turned to a young disciple behind him and said, Yabai, you will enter this spar and compete with the Yao race senior brother. As soon as Niezhenbei's words fell, a cold-faced young man in black robes respectfully clasped his hands and nodded in agreement. Then, he transformed into a streak of light and instantly appeared on the Cloud Peak arena. His speed was so fast that none of the Yao race disciple noticed his figure. What incredible speed! What formidable strength! All the Yao race disciple exclaimed in their hearts. Looking at the shocked expressions of the Yao race disciple, Niezhenbei was full of pride, and the Xingchen sect disciple behind him were all arrogant and conceited. Mu Yabai was their strongest prodigy among the younger generation, second only to the saint. He had always followed the old ancestor to cultivate in the ancestral land. This time, the sect master specifically instructed Mu Yabai to accompany them to the Yao race to prevent any unexpected situations. Luo Qingshan merely glanced at him, discovering that this person was actually an immortal realm cultivator. She frowned slightly and spoke to Niezhenbei, saying, the Xingchen sect truly lives up to its reputation as a top-tier force to have such a powerful disciple among its younger generation. It seems Elder Nya came prepared this time. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Niezhenbei smiled slightly and said, Empress, you jest. Yabai also had some opportunities, and his strength barely broke through to the immortal realm. However, since the Yao race is also a top-tier force, I imagine there should be quite a few immortal realm disciples as well. Niezhenbei had another purpose in coming to the Yao race this time, to see if there were any top prodigy among the younger generation of the Yao race, and thereby assess the strength of the Yao race's younger generation disciple. Hearing Niezhenbei's words, Luo Qingshan frowned slightly, thinking to herself, "It seems this time, I can only let the Yao race prodigy cultivating in the Demon Clan ancestral land enter the arena. Otherwise, none of the Yao race disciple on the viewing platform will be this person's match." Just as Luo Qingshan was about to speak, a calm, yet domineering voice rang out. This made all the Yao race people excited, while the Xiantian sect people's faces showed shock and pleasant surprise. Chapter 39. Yi Xingchen appears, Xiantian sword art. At this moment, looking at the young man on the arena, Luo Qingshan knew that none of the Yao race disciples in the stands could possibly be his opponent. It seemed the only option was to let the Yao race prodigies, cultivating in the ancestral land, enter the match. Just as Luo Qingshan was about to speak, a commanding voice rang out. This matter was agreed upon by this emperor, so it should be this emperor who personally enters the match. At this moment, Yi Xingchen, who had remained silent, suddenly stood up and spoke with great authority. Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, all the Yao race disciples showed excitement, while the people of the Xiantian sect showed shock and pleasant surprise. Niezhenbei was also slightly taken aback when he heard Yi Xingchen's words and looked toward Yi Xingchen. Only at this moment did Niezhenbei realize how pleasing Yi Xingchen was to the eye, and he couldn't help but say, "Of course, the Demon Clan Emperor can also enter the match. After all, this is a sparring session between young men." However, since the Demon Clan Emperor is only in the innate realm, this old man can have Yebai suppress his cultivation to the innate realm as well. That way it will be fair. Hearing Niezhenbei's words, Yi Xingchen remained completely calm, not even sparing Niezhenbei a glance. This made Niezhenbei secretly delighted, although he feigned displeasure on the surface. After all, no one would be too happy about that. Although he was secretly pleased, he still had to maintain the act on the surface. This was exactly what he wanted to see. The husband of the majestic Demon Empress was merely a weak human race member, and worse, an arrogant young man who didn't know his place. It seemed that Demon Empress Luo Qingshan even valued his opinion highly. With such a Demon Clan Emperor, the future of a Yao race was predictable. Even if the great Dao personally came to offer congratulations, what good would that do? Thinking of this, Niezhenbei couldn't help but laugh. Realizing his lapse in composure, Niezhenbei immediately stopped laughing and put on a look of displeasure. However, Niezhenbei did not know that everything he thought, including his schemes, had been completely seen through by Yi Xingchen from the very beginning. Yi Xingchen, a stranger to both worlds, looked at Niezhenbei, who was acting like a clown, with eyes full of amusement. Yi Xingchen finally understood why clowns always manage to make people happy. Giving Luo Qingshan a reassuring look, Yi Xingchen took a step and instantly appeared on the arena. The speed was so fast that neither Luo Qingshan nor Niezhenbei noticed, as if Yi Xingchen had been on the Cloud Peak arena the entire time. At this moment, Niezhenbei frowned slightly, feeling shocked. That unpleasant feeling surfaced again, and he quickly spoke. "Mu Yebai, since the Demon Clan Emperor hasn't spoken, he must be extremely confident in his own strength. You shall compete with the Demon Clan Emperor using the strength of the immortal realm, but be mindful of your limits." At this moment, Niezhenbei ignored the contemptuous glances of the surrounding Yao race members. The grade 4 pill formula and 100 million top-grade spirit stones absolutely could not be lost. Ever since Yi Xingchen achieved a breakthrough and decided to stand at the peak, the seed of invincibility in his heart had sprouted, and audacious ideas had taken root in his mind. In this life, he would lead the Yao race to stand at the peak, looking down upon all mountains. Mu Yebai secretly frowned as he looked at Yi Xingchen, who had suddenly appeared on the arena, a man who only possessed the strength of the immortal realm. Mu Yebai had to admit that the man before him indeed possessed unparalleled temperament and handsome looks. He was even a little jealous. No wonder the Demon Empress, such a stunning woman, had taken a liking to this fellow. However, the divine wilderness continent ultimately spoke through strength, and the power of the innate realm was ultimately nothing more than that of an ant. Looking at Yi Xingchen, Mu Yebai spoke with contempt. Although you're the Demon Clan Emperor, once you enter the match, status and rank are irrelevant on the arena. Who gave an innate realm cultivator, who is only slightly stronger than an ant, the courage to face me, an immortal realm expert? After Mu Yebai finished speaking, a vast immortal spiritual power surged out from his body, forming a huge chi circle that vibrated outwards in all directions, kicking up swirls of dust on the arena. Xingchen saw the contempt in Mu Yebai's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He looked at Mu Yebai as if he were looking at an idiot, and said, "Oh, the innate realm? Have you ever witnessed the true innate realm?" Seeing Xingchen looking at him, as if he were an idiot, Mu Yebai had never endured such contempt. In the Xiantian sect, apart from the saint, he was the most prominent. Everywhere he went, he was an object of worship. Now, being looked down upon so greatly by Xingchen, how could he tolerate it? "You're courting death. Young master will let you feel the power of the immortal realm first." After Mu Yebai spoke, the terrifying aura of the immortal realm erupted, pressing directly toward Xingchen, intending to use sheer oppressive might to force Xingchen onto the ground. If the dignified Demon Clan Emperor were pressed onto the ground by a mere disciple, it would be equivalent to Mu Yebai rubbing the entire Yao race's face into the dirt. If word spread, the Yao race would likely never have the face to stand firm on the divine wilderness continent again. Mu Yebai's move was undeniably vicious. He really wanted to see the reaction of the Yao race disciples in the surrounding stands. That look of extreme anger mixed with utter helplessness, something Mu Yebai thoroughly enjoyed. At this moment, Mu Yebai seemed to have already envisioned the expressions of the Yao race disciples, and he happily looked toward the Yao race disciples around the arena. To his surprise, he found that all the Yao race disciples were looking at him as if he were an idiot, causing Mu Yebai to freeze slightly. He instantly turned his head to look in Xingchen's direction, only to find Xingchen standing there calmly, seemingly completely unaffected by his immortal realm aura. Impossible! How can the innate realm possibly resist the oppressive might of an immortal realm expert's aura? This is impossible! Mu Yebai cried out in disbelief, barely trusting his own eyes. Hearing Mu Yebai's words, Xingchen still stood there calmly, and the same words rang out. "Have you ever witnessed the true innate realm? With this emperor, anything is possible." Hearing Xingchen's words, Mu Yebai actually laughed heartily. A divine radiance flashed, and a spirit sword of no low grade appeared in Mu Yebai's hand. Gripping the spirit sword, Mu Yebai immediately calmed down significantly. He let out a cold snort, and vast immortal spiritual power rose from within his body. The spirit sword in his hand transformed into countless divine radiances, carrying supreme might, and slashed toward Xingchen as if tearing open the energy void realm. Sword breaks the firmament. What Mu Yebai used was actually the Xiantian sect's foundational martial skill, the Xiantian sword art. Watching Mu Yebai's terrifying sword strike, carrying supreme power, slash toward him, Xingchen stood calmly in place, his expression peaceful. Luo Qingshan, seeing this terrifying sword strike, showed worry. Although she believed her husband was definitely not just the innate realm cultivator he appeared to be, she had never witnessed his true power, so a look of concern involuntarily appeared on her face. Niezhen Bei, sitting there, was also filled with tension. He secretly resented Mu Yebai, who was clearly too accustomed to arrogance, daring to use such a terrifying sword strike regardless of the opponent's identity. Although life and death are determined by fate on the arena, if he actually killed the Demon Clan Emperor with one strike, none of them would be able to leave alive. Therefore, he sat there with a nervous expression, ready to intervene at any moment to stop Mu Yebai's sword strike. However, Xingchen's mouth curled slightly at this moment, his eyes filled with mockery. Seeing the ridicule in Xingchen's eyes, Mu Yebai grew even angrier. The immortal spiritual power within his body surged out wildly, making the power of the strike even more terrifying. At this moment, Xingchen's voice rang out, carrying endless sarcasm. "To use a sword in front of this emperor, it seems you truly know nothing about this sword." The next moment, immediately after Xingchen finished speaking, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Chapter 40. Defeating the enemy with a single finger, the tragic Xiantian sect. At this moment, watching Mu Yebai's terrifying sword strike coming towards him, Xingchen's lips curled slightly, a look of mockery on his face. "To use a sword in front of this emperor, it seems you truly know nothing about swords." The next moment, as soon as Xingchen finished speaking, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Xingchen stood calmly, extended one hand, formed a sword finger, and pointed it towards Mu Yebai's terrifying sword strike. This finger was simple, without a trace of immortal spiritual power, and carried no hint of worldly chi. The next moment, with a boom and a scream, the entire arena instantly filled with dust, and a figure rapidly retreated, blood splattering in the void realm. As the dust settled, on the arena, a black-robed figure knelt on both knees, continuously spitting out fresh blood. The spiritual sword in his hand had disappeared, leaving only the hilt. It was precisely Xiantian sect's immortal realm disciple, Mu Yebai. This scene shocked everyone. Nie Jinbei even rubbed his eyes, disbelievingly watching all this, and all the Xintian sect disciples behind him widened their eyes, mouths agape. Their incredibly powerful senior brother Mu was now kneeling there like a dead dog. In contrast, the Demon Clan Emperor stood calmly with his hands behind his back, completely unchanged, and not even a speck of dust sullied his white robes. In just one move, Xintian sect's immortal realm disciple Mu Yebai lost. At this moment, Mu Yebai, kneeling on both knees, stared intently at the white-robed figure in front of him, wanting to say something, but finally couldn't bear it and fainted, his eyes going black. Nie Jinbei flashed onto the arena, found that Mu Yebai was only severely injured but not in mortal danger, and casually placed a medicinal pill into Mu Yebai's mouth. Picking up the unconscious Mu Yebai, he flashed onto the high platform. After handing Mu Yebai over to a Xintian sect disciple, Nie Jinbei looked at Yi Xingchen, who stood calmly, and spoke. As expected of the Demon Clan Emperor, you must have a treasure that conceals your cultivation. Otherwise, how could even this old man not detect your true cultivation? Hearing Nie Jinbei's words, Yi Xingchen spoke for the first time. Elder Nie is overthinking. This emperor is merely in the innate realm. Where would I have a treasure that conceals cultivation? Elder Nie should know how rare such treasures are. This emperor is merely in the innate realm. Nie Jinbei's divine sense swept over Yi Xingchen again, and he found that Yi Xingchen had no aura of any treasure. The Demon Clan Emperor was truly only in the innate realm. Nie Jinbei frowned deeply, truly unable to believe it. Yet his divine Emperor realm divine sense could not be wrong. The Demon Clan Emperor was indeed in the innate realm. At this moment, Yi Xingchen, who had already flown back to the high platform, looked at the deeply frowning Nie Jinbei and thought to himself, playing schemes with this young master? Let you guess all you want. Anyway, this young master is in the innate realm. Don't even think about seeing through this young master's true cultivation, let alone you, a divine Emperor realm cultivator, even if a Jade Emperor expert descends. Looking at the calm Yi Xingchen also looked at Nie Jinbei, a smile on his face. At this moment, Nie Jinbei, seeing the divine light emanating from Yi Xingchen's eyes, suddenly understood. His eyes instantly widened. Then he smiled faintly, sighing helplessly. The divine light emanating from this child's eyes carried immense confidence, and his entire demeanor exuded the domineering aura of a superior. How could such a person be simple? Presumably, from the very beginning, all of his schemes had been seen through by this child. Everything that had happened recently in the Yao race must be related to this child. However, this child's strength was indeed in the innate realm, which Nie Jinbei truly couldn't comprehend. But Nie Jinbei had no idea that not only could he not see through it, even if ancient gods descended, as long as Yi Xingchen didn't want them to, they wouldn't be able to see through it either. He helplessly said to Yi Xingchen, as expected of the Demon Clan Emperor, this old man was too presumptuous. I admire you. I admire you. I hope to have the opportunity to learn from you again. Then, with a wave of his hand, 2 golden pill formulas and a storage ring appeared before Luo Qingshan, and he said, in this sparring match, Xintian sect lost. We will honor our bet. 2 grade 4 pill formulas and 100 million top-grade spirit stones. Please accept them, Empress. As soon as Nie Jinbei's words fell, all the Yao race disciples in the stands erupted in a huge cheer. They were simply too happy. The emperor had finally vented their frustration. Hearing the earth-shattering cheers, Nie Jinbei's mouth twitched, and the Xintian sect disciples behind him no longer had their previous arrogance. Their faces filled with sorrow. Too ashamed to remain in the Yao race, he nodded slightly to the Empress and Yi Xingchen. Then, with a sweep, gathered the Xintian sect disciples, and Nie Jinbei's figure vanished. Watching the embarrassed Nie Jinbei depart, Yi Xingchen and Luo Qingshan exchanged a smile, and Yi Xingchen turned to look in the direction Nie Jinbei had left, his eyes filled with disdain. Others might not have noticed, but who was Yi Xingchen? When Nie Jinbei lowered his head for a moment before leaving, the killing intent deep in his eyes was clearly captured by Yi Xingchen. Looking in the direction Nie Jinbei had left, Yi Xingchen thought to himself, it's best not to provoke this emperor, otherwise, Xintian sect truly has no reason to exist. At this moment, Yi Xingchen's eyes were shining with divine light, utterly domineering. Turning around and looking at the cheers of the many Yao race disciples, Luo Qingshan looked at Yi Xingchen, her eyes full of tenderness. Husband, since it was husband who won the wager, then these stakes belong to husband. After Luo Qingshan finished speaking, the 2 golden pill formulas and a storage ring were placed into Yi Xingchen's hands. And all the Yao race people, watching all this, had no trace of jealousy in their eyes. These were all well-deserved by the emperor. Currently, Xingchen was simply a godlike existence in the eyes of the Yao race disciples. Xingchen looked at the two golden grade 4-pill formulas in his hand, pouted slightly, and said to Luo Qingshan, "Wifey, these 2 grade 4-pill formulas are too trashy. When our Yao race needs them, your husband will refine them for our Yao race. These 2-pill formulas can be directly auctioned off. They should have some value," Xingchen said, after placing the golden pill formulas into Luo Qingshan's hands. Then, looking at the storage ring in his hand, his divine sense swept through it, and seeing the 100 million top-grade spirit stones inside, Xingchen felt nothing. He had several million top-grade immortal stones lying in his system space. Looking up at the Yao race people around him, their eyes filled with fervent adoration, Xingchen spoke. "Is the Grand Elder present?" Hearing Xingchen's words, Grand Elder Wan Qinli instantly appeared beside Xingchen, cupped his fists, bowed, and awaited Xingchen's instructions. "Grand Elder, use all 100 million top-grade spirit stones as cultivation benefits for the Yao race disciples. The immortal spiritual qi in the Yao race is now as dense as that of the ancestral land, making it the perfect time to diligently cultivate and break through realms. If Xiantian sect has disciples who can break through to the immortal realm, then our Yao race disciples can do the same." Hearing Xingchen's words, all the Yao race people's eyes widened. This was 100 million top-grade spirit stones, and the emperor gave them to the Grand Elder for the Yao race disciples' cultivation benefits without the slightest reluctance. This, as expected of Boss Emperor, the man everyone admired. All the Yao race disciples looked at Xingchen with even greater adoration, and Luo Qingshan, watching everything her husband did, had a beautiful smile on her exquisite face, and her beautiful eyes were full of deep affection as she looked at Xingchen. Chapter 41. Shocking news, Huangfu Booby's conspiracy. At this moment, Luo Qingshan looked at everything her husband had done, her beautiful face filled with smiles, and her lovely eyes, fixed on Xingchen, were full of deep affection. Xingchen looked at the deep affection in Luo Qingshan's eyes, gently held her hand, felt a surge of heroic spirit, laughed heartily, and loudly declared, "Aha, I'm happy today. I finally got sweet revenge. Not only did I obtain 2 grade 4-pill formulas from Xiantian sect, but I also won 100 million top-grade spirit stones. That's enough to make Xiantian sect suffer for quite a while. Grand Elder, since I'm happy today, distribute these 100 million top-grade spirit stones to all the Yao race disciples. Let all the disciples share in the joy." At this moment, the Yao race members throughout the Cloud Peak arena heard Xingchen's words and immediately erupted in earth-shattering cheers, creating an extraordinary spectacle. At the same time, in stark contrast to the lively atmosphere of the Yao race, the Xiantian sect was utterly bleak. At this moment, inside the main hall of the Xiantian sect, on the throne above, a middle-aged man with a wicked look flashed a cold light in his eyes, staring with a sinister smile at Xingchen, who was kneeling below. The middle-aged man was currently emitting a powerful aura, an extremely cold qi enveloping his entire body, causing the space around him to be almost frozen. Around Xingchen stood several powerful individuals. Feeling the intense coldness emanating from the middle-aged man above, they all slightly closed their eyes, their faces calm. "Elder Nye, rise." This matter was agreed upon by this emperor, and it has nothing to do with Elder Nye. "Detail your trip to the Yao race." A cold and authoritative voice rang out. Hearing this cold and authoritative voice, Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief, slowly stood up, and bowed respectfully to the man on the throne above. Then he spoke, sounding excited. Reporting to Sect Master, this old man made a major discovery on this trip to the Yao race. It turned out that the middle-aged man with the sinister look and cold qi was none other than the master of the Xiantian sect, Nangong Luyuan, sect leader. At this moment, hearing Xingchen's words, Nangong Luyuan, sect leader, raised an eyebrow, and his cold, authoritative voice came through. "A major discovery, explain it in detail, and let the elders listen as well. Since it makes Elder Nye so excited, it must be very interesting." Hearing the words of Nangong Luyuan, sect leader, Xingchen dared not delay and spoke excitedly to everyone. During this trip to the Yao race, this old man actually discovered that the news spread by Shangqing Palace is true. The Demon Empress's husband is indeed a human race member. Furthermore, the recent celestial phenomena in the Yao race, as well as the sudden appearance of medicinal pills, are all inextricably linked to this person. Currently, the concentration of immortal spiritual qi throughout the Yao race is comparable to the small world where the sect's old ancestors conduct their secluded cultivation. Hearing Xingchen's words, everyone from the Xiantian sect, including Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, showed expressions of shock. They weren't shocked that Luo Qingshan's husband was a human race member. Rather, they were worried that such massive changes in the Yao race were all related to this person. Could this person be from a hidden world, giant holy land? The Xingchen sect was afraid of offending the true giant powers of the divine wilderness continent, the hidden holy lands. They were the true masters of the divine wilderness continent and could easily annihilate the Xingchen sect in the blink of an eye, leaving no trace. Seeing everyone's reaction, Niezhenbei immediately understood what they were worried about, and he continued. Sect master, there's no need to worry. This young man is definitely not from a hidden world, giant holy land. Although his temperament is extraordinary, his strength is only in the innate realm. However, there's one thing this old man truly doesn't understand. How could this young man, who is only in the innate realm, defeat Mu Yebai, who is in the immortal realm, with a single finger? Hearing Niezhenbei's words, Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, frowned slightly, and his authoritative voice sounded. Elder Nye didn't see wrongly. This young man is indeed in the innate realm, and he didn't use any treasure for hiding cultivation. Hearing the words of Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, Niezhenbei nodded affirmatively. Reporting to sect master, this old man can confirm that this young man absolutely did not use any treasure for hiding cultivation. Such treasures are rare, even among those true giant powers. Moreover, if he truly had a treasure for hiding cultivation, this old man would always be able to spot some clues. This old man did not detect the chi of any treasure on this young man. He is just an ordinary innate realm cultivator. Hearing Niezhenbei's words, Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, on the main seat, frowned slightly. He trusted Elder Nye's judgment. However, an innate realm cultivator being able to defeat an immortal realm cultivator was simply unheard of. This young man was too mysterious. But since he is not from those hidden holy land powers, then other powers will definitely be interested. After all, many powers are currently investigating this young man's identity. If they knew this young man was merely a human race member in the innate realm, what would those powers do? Thinking this, Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, showed a sinister smile and spoke to Niezhenbei below. Elder Nye, let's stop here for now. Spread the news that the Demon Empress's husband is a human race member in the innate realm. I believe many powers will be interested. Hearing the words of Nangong Luoyun, sect leader, Niezhenbei's eyes lit up, and he immediately performed a cupped fist salute, respectfully nodding in agreement. The next day, shocking news spread throughout the entire divine wilderness continent. The Demon Empress's husband was a human race member in the innate realm. This news exploded among all powers like a heavy bomb. Inside Xingchen Palace, Huangfu Bubi, sitting in the main seat, was listening calmly to the news being reported from below. The corner of his mouth curled slightly upward as he spoke to the Xingchen Palace elders beneath him. Now, every power across the divine wilderness continent knows that the Demon Empress's husband is a human race member whose strength is only in the innate realm. The problem this emperor was worried about no longer exists. With this young man's strength, he definitely cannot be a disciple of a hidden world, giant holy land. Looking at the many powerful elders below, a cold light flashed in Huangfu Bubi's eyes, and he continued. Since that is the case, spread the word. Xingchen Palace can refine longevity pills for any power that wants them. This is what all powers desire to refine the most. After all, there are too many powerful experts in the major powers whose lifespans are running out, making them hesitant to act easily. They rely on some longevity immortal plants to extend their lifespan, but ultimately, they are not as effective as longevity medicinal pills. The longevity pills refined by our Xingchen Palace can extend one's lifespan by at least 5 years with a single dose. Once this news spreads, countless powers will surely come here for alchemy. However, there is one condition for refining longevity pills. No power is allowed to purchase the Yao race's medicinal pills, or Xingchen Palace will not refine longevity pills for them. Furthermore, spread the news that from now on, Xingchen Palace will no longer refine any longevity pills for the Yao race until the Demon Empress comes to seek peace. This emperor wants to see if, without longevity pills, Luo Qingshan will simply watch as the Yao race experts pass away one by one. It's merely a grade 1 medicinal pill. Xingchen Palace isn't without it. Thinking that having an alchemist allows them to challenge Xingchen Palace, this emperor will not only make the Yao race obediently hand over those 3 pill formulas, but also make them hand over that alchemist. One is an unrelated alchemist, and the others are Yao race experts. This emperor wants to see how Luo Qingshan chooses. Ha 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 ha! Having said this, Huangfu Bubi threw his head back and laughed loudly. At this moment, all the elders standing below looked at Huangfu Bubi with expressions of awe. Huangfu Bubi's move was undeniably vicious. If Luo Qingshan handed over the pill formulas and the alchemist for the sake of the longevity pills, then no alchemist would ever be willing to go to the Yao race for alchemy again, and the Yao race's reputation would plummet. Similarly, if Luo Qingshan abandoned the longevity pills for the sake of these 3 pill formulas and the alchemist, then some Yao race experts whose lifespans were running out would inevitably harbor resentment. At that time, the internal stability of the Yao race would be compromised, possibly leading to civil war, which is also what many powers hope to see. Having understood this point, all the powerful experts of Xingchen Palace standing there looked at Huangfu Bubi with expressions of awe. Inside the Empress Palace, Luo Qingshan listened calmly to the Grand Elder's report. Luo Qingshan knew that the matter of her husband being a human race member could not be concealed and had long been mentally prepared, but she hadn't expected it to cause such a huge reaction. Meanwhile, Xingchen was lying comfortably in the lake pavilion, looking pleased as he recalled Luo Qingshan's shy appearance from last night. Looking at the lake's surface, which was as calm as a mirror, and remembering that he hadn't signed in today, he spoke to the system. System, begin today's check-in. Chapter 42, Life Divine Spring, Empress's Wrath. At this moment, Xingchen sat leisurely in the lake pavilion, recalling Luo Qingshan's charming and shy appearance from last night, a look of triumph on his face. Remembering that he hadn't checked in today, he said to the system, System, daily check-in begins. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward, a bottle of Life Divine Spring. The Life Divine Spring, formed from the first drop of divine water before the heavens and earth were separated, can restore one's origin, heal severe injuries, and extend life. One drop can extend life by 50 years, instantly healing severe internal injuries, and can be used infinitely. It is a rare and supreme divine item. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward, 1 million supreme immortal stones, which have been stored in the system space for the host. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward, 1 million bottles of supreme divine wine, which have been stored in the system space for the host. Listening to the series of melodious sounds from the system, Xingchen was extremely excited, especially the Life Divine Spring rewarded by the system. One drop could extend life by 50 years, heal severe internal injuries, and be used infinitely. This was simply too overbearing, truly worthy of being a system product. Xingchen couldn't help but say to the system, System, you are too great. This host simply loves you. As soon as Xingchen finished speaking, the system's voice came through. Please remain calm, host. As the only system in all realms, this system is destined to help the host reach the peak and sweep across all ages. Listening to the system's voice, that bold idea in Xingchen's heart grew stronger and stronger. Now that he had been reborn, possessed powerful strength, and had the system, all of this was his confidence. Perhaps it's time to go out and explore, Xingchen thought to himself, looking at the calm lake surface. Taking out the bottle of Life Divine Spring from the system space, Xingchen held in his hand and carefully examined it. The bottle was pale gold, made of unknown materials, and carried an ancient aura. Xingchen guessed that this golden bottle was also extraordinary. Opening the bottle, an extremely dense life force instantly emanated from it. Xingchen was surprised to find that this pale golden bottle was indeed not an ordinary item. The bottle actually contained its own universe, holding a sumaru and a mustard seed. It was an extremely rare divine bottle. Xingchen swept it with his divine sense, and was shocked to discover that the Life Divine Spring inside the bottle was almost level with the natural lake water before his eyes. This discovery instantly made Xingchen jump up. He almost spilled the Life Divine Spring from the bottle. So much Life Divine Spring was enough for Xingchen to do many things. Looking at the green Life Divine Spring in the bottle, Xingchen's lips curled up involuntarily. At this moment, feeling the continuous emission of extremely rich life force from the bottle, Xingchen even discovered that the plants around the lake pavilion and by the lake had grown significantly taller. Even the lotus flower on the lake, which was still in bud, had bloomed in a short time, emitting a faint fragrance. Xingchen immediately capped the bottle, carefully put the Life Divine Spring into the system space, humming a tune, a look of contentment on his face. The scene shifts to the Empress Palace. Luo Qingshan frowned deeply. The Grand Elder, who had just returned, brought news that angered Luo Qingshan. Reporting to the Empress, it is now known throughout the divine wilderness that the Imperial Lord is a human race in the innate realm. Numerous forces are secretly mocking us incessantly. What's worse, Xingchen Palace has spread word that from now on, they will no longer refine longevity pills for our Yao race. Even more infuriating is that they want the Empress to personally visit them to make peace and hand over 3 pill formulas and the Yao race alchemists. Hearing the Grand Elder's furious words, a terrifying killing intent shot out from Luo Qingshan's eyes. The surrounding space continuously trembled, and a powerful aura filled the entire Empress Palace, making several elders below hurriedly exclaim, "Empress! Empress!" Hearing the voices of the elders below, Luo Qingshan's terrifying killing intent slowly vanished, and her powerful aura receded into her body. At this moment, Luo Qingshan was truly the peerless empress who unified the Yao race. Slowly regaining her composure, Luo Qingshan looked at the several Yao race elders below and said, "This matter is of great importance and involves many factors. Huangfu Bubi's action is too vicious. What do you all think is the best solution?" Hearing the empress's question, the several Yao race elders below also frowned deeply. As Luo Qingshan said, Huangfu Bubi's move was too vicious. If not handled properly, the consequences might be unbearable for the Yao race. Suddenly, a voice filled with wisdom and sternness rang out. "Empress, as the master of the Yao race, when did you become so impatient? The more angry and agitated you are, the more you must calm yourself down. Don't forget, Empress, your single word could determine the life and death of the Yao race." Hearing the sudden voice, Luo Qingshan lowered her head, somewhat ashamed. When she heard the Grand Elder's words, as it concerned Xingchen, Luo Qingshan truly became furious and failed to control her emotions. And throughout the entire Yao race, the only one who could speak to the Empress in such a manner was the sole remaining demon clan sage of the Yao race, Lu Wanchuan. At this moment, hearing Lu Wanchuan's words, Luo Qingshan stood up and bowed to Lu Wanchuan, saying, "Thank you, old Lu, for your guidance. This Empress knows her mistake." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Lu Wanchuan smiled and nodded, saying, "Actually, the Empress and the elders are also caught in the situation, and concern leads to confusion. This matter is easy to solve. That Huangfu Bubi's so-called confidence is merely because he possesses longevity pills. Everyone, look at this old man. Don't you feel like you've forgotten something?" Hearing Lu Wanchuan's words, Luo Qingshan's eyes instantly sparkled with brilliance. She excitedly said, "Thank you, old Lu, for the reminder. This Empress had even forgotten about this matter. Someone, please invite the Imperial Lord to the Empress Palace. This Empress has something important to discuss with the Imperial Lord." Prompted by Lu Wanchuan, the other Yao race elders also instantly reacted. Wasn't the rejuvenated demon clan sage, before their eyes, a typical example? The Imperial Lord is the only 9th-rank alchemist in the Divine Wilderness continent, capable of refining undying golden pills that extend life by 100,000 years. Why fear Xingchen Palace's longevity pills that only extend life by 5 years? Huangfu Bubi's scheme is probably going to fall through this time. At this moment, hearing Luo Qingshan's words, a figure appeared. It was the guard captain Wei Donglai, who bowed to Luo Qingshan and then disappeared. After a short while, Xingchen leisurely arrived at the Empress Palace. This was the first time Luo Qingshan had invited him to the Empress Palace. Upon Xingchen's arrival, several Yao race elders, as well as the demon clan sage Lu Wanchuan, all bowed to Xingchen. Xingchen quickly smiled and told everyone to rise, completely devoid of the majesty an imperial lord should possess. And all the Yao race elders and Lu Wanchuan, seeing Xingchen's appearance, were all smiling, with immense respect in their eyes. Who wouldn't like such an approachable imperial lord? Looking at her husband, Luo Qingshan's lips curved into a smile, her face full of tenderness. She watched Xingchen, who sat beside her, wink at her with a mischievous smile. Luo Qingshan, who already had a telepathic connection with Xingchen, naturally understood the meaning in her husband's eyes. Her pretty face flushed slightly, and she gave her husband a fierce glare. Recalling how that scoundrel teased her last night, Luo Qingshan felt a burst of shyness, but her heart was filled with boundless tenderness. Then she softly said to Xingchen, "I invited my husband here this time to discuss something with you." Seeing Luo Qingshan's shy appearance, Xingchen knew she understood his thoughts. He smiled slightly and softly said, "My dear wife, what discussion? Just give the orders directly. My wife is the one who makes the decisions in our home." Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan's beautiful face became even shyer. She glanced at the people below and saw that all the Yao race members were smiling, bowing their heads and pretending not to hear. Luo Qingshan's face grew redder. She gave Xingchen a coquettish look before speaking and telling him about today's events. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen's face instantly darkened, and a terrifying aura emanated from his body. Compared to his smiling, approachable demeanor just moments ago, Xingchen now resembled a demon god, arrogant and unparalleled in his dominance, causing everyone in the Empress Palace to feel fear. Husband. With a soft cry, the terrifying aura around Xingchen instantly vanished, as if it had never appeared. Looking at Luo Qingshan, whose eyes were filled with worry, Xingchen turned and gently took her hand, smiled slightly, and then said something that shocked everyone. Chapter 43. The Secret of the Hidden World, Xingchen's terrifying aura. At this moment, hearing a soft cry from Luo Qingshan, the terrifying aura emanating from Xingchen instantly vanished. He turned around, took Luo Qingshan's hand, smiled slightly, and immediately spoke words that stunned everyone. This Xingchen Palace is truly audacious. Where do they get the confidence to dare to make this emperor's wife personally visit them to admit fault, just because they can refine that trash longevity pill? At this moment, Xingchen's gaze was like lightning, sharp and shocking, and his every action conveyed dominance. All the elders below, feeling Xingchen's domineering aura, had admiration in their eyes and secretly sighed in their hearts. The emperor is indeed extraordinary. That terrifying aura just now actually made us feel fear. The emperor's strength is far greater than we imagined. At this time, Luo Qingshan looked at Xingchen with a face full of tenderness. Just because Huangfu Bubi wanted her to personally visit and seek peace, her husband became so angry. How could Luo Qingshan not be moved? Looking at Xingchen, who was filled with a domineering aura, Luo Qingshan softly said, "Husband, there is no need to be angry. That Huangfu Bubi is only so confident because Xingchen Palace can refine the longevity pill. The entire divine wilderness continent, apart from those hidden world giant forces, basically has to submit to Xingchen Palace, as medicinal pills that extend lifespan are extremely necessary and indispensable for every force." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen spoke up. In the entire divine wilderness, with so many forces, do none of them have their own alchemists? Refining medicinal pills that extend lifespan is also extremely simple. Are they just going to let Xingchen Palace slowly grow stronger? Also, what did my wife mean by hidden world giant forces? Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen immediately asked. Hearing Xingchen's question, Luo Qingshan sighed helplessly and said softly, "Since the ancient immortal demon war, many alchemists and pill formulas have been lost. This has made alchemists extremely rare on the current divine wilderness continent, and pill formulas for extending lifespan are even scarcer. They're mostly controlled by those hidden world giant holy lands. Since Xingchen Palace possesses a pill formula for extending lifespan, they essentially hold sufficient influence when the hidden world giant forces do not emerge." Looking at Xingchen, Luo Qingshan smiled slightly and continued. "The hidden world giant holy lands that husband asked about are actually those super forces that have been secluded since ancient times. They did not participate in the immortal demon war at that time. So many martial skills, pill formulas, and alchemists were perfectly preserved. So many years have passed, and for unknown reasons, these super forces rarely emerge, but their strength has become even greater. They could almost effortlessly destroy any top force on the divine wilderness continent. The former top force of the divine wilderness continent, Misty Manor, was wiped out overnight for offending a hidden world giant holy land during an auction, causing a shock throughout the divine wilderness. Afterward, no force on the entire divine wilderness continent dared to offend those hidden world giant holy lands again. Fortunately, these secluded forces never interfere with the affairs of the divine wilderness continent, so conflicts with the current forces of the divine wilderness continent rarely occur." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, the idea in Xingchen's heart became even more urgent. He hadn't expected such powerful forces to be hidden on the divine wilderness continent. To be able to completely destroy Misty Manor, the top force on the divine wilderness continent, overnight, means the experts among them must be several times stronger than those of Misty Manor. As a top force, Misty Manor must have had at least one great emperor-level old ancestor and dozens of immortal emperor experts. Yet they didn't even have a chance to escape and were wiped out overnight. One can imagine how powerful the hidden world giant holy lands are. Looking at Luo Qingshan, Xingchen smiled slightly. It seems these so-called hidden world giant holy lands regard themselves as lofty deities. On one hand, they remain secluded, pretending to be superior. On the other hand, they control or cooperate with certain forces behind the scenes to gain benefits for themselves. Otherwise, where would they get so many spirit stones for cultivation over the years? And where would they get numerous spirit medicines and immortal plants to refine medicinal pills, unless the disciples of these forces no longer need to cultivate? Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan spoke with a smile in her eyes. Husband is right. Although these secluded forces do not emerge, many forces today have a shadow of these secluded forces behind them. But this is understandable. After all, these forces also need spirit stones. It's just that exactly which forces they are is beyond our ability to guess. Casting a look full of tenderness at Yi Xingchen, Luo Qingshan continued. The most important thing now is resolving the matter of the longevity medicinal pill. That is why I invited husband here, to ask you about refining the longevity medicinal pill. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Yi Xingchen smiled slightly and softly said to Luo Qingshan, Wife, refining medicinal pills that extend lifespan is too simple. Things like undying pills and lifespan augmenting pills can all extend lifespan, but husband is truly too lazy to refine these medicinal pills. In Yi Xingchen's mind, he possesses the alchemy true explanation, the treasure of the alchemy sect from ancient times. The number of pill formulas is comparable to any force from that ancient era. There are many medicinal pills that extend lifespan, but Yi Xingchen currently possesses better ones, which is why he said this to Luo Qingshan, as he doesn't plan to refine them. Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, the entire Empress Palace instantly fell silent. Everyone showed shock in their eyes. The names of the medicinal pills the Emperor mentioned casually were ones they had never heard of. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions, Yi Xingchen softly said to Luo Qingshan, Wife, husband is a 9th-rank alchemist. If our Yao race still consumes that trash medicinal pill from Xingchen Palace, it would truly be an insult to husband's reputation. After Yi Xingchen finished speaking, he waved his hand, and 9 undying golden pills appeared before Luo Qingshan. A rich life, qi instantly filled the entire Empress Palace, and then he softly said to Luo Qingshan, Wife, if the experts of our Yao race are going to take medicinal pills, they should take these undying golden pills. One pill can extend lifespan by 100,000 years. Although each person can only take it once, after 100,000 years, they could take other medicinal pills that extend lifespan. After Yi Xingchen finished speaking, he placed the 9 undying golden pills into Luo Qingshan's hands. Feeling the rich life qi in her hand, Luo Qingshan looked up at Yi Xingchen in disbelief and said aloud, Husband, these medicinal pills are 9th-rank medicinal pills. Are you sure you're giving all of them to Luo Qingshan? Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Yi Xingchen lovingly scratched Luo Qingshan's perky nose and softly said with a smile, Wife, you and I are one. They're just 9 medicinal pills. If my wife needs them, husband can refine more for you later. At this moment, hearing Yi Xingchen's words and feeling his deep affection for her, Luo Qingshan's eyes became slightly moist. With these medicinal pills, the Yao race would no longer need to worry about Xingchen Palace's attitude. Inside the Empress Palace, the other members of the Yao race saw Yi Xingchen casually take out 9 9th-rank medicinal pills and felt the rich life qi, immediately becoming filled with excitement. With the Emperor present, the Yao race is destined to rise. Suddenly, Yi Xingchen's voice rang out again. Looking at Luo Qingshan, he said, Since this Xingchen Palace has set up a challenge arena, husband accepts. Husband can endure other matters, but daring to bully and insult my wife like this. Even if it were the heavens, husband would step on it, let alone a mere Xingchen Palace. Hearing her husband's domineering words, Luo Qingshan was deeply moved. Looking at the confident glow in Yi Xingchen's eyes, she softly said, Husband, I presume you already have a way to deal with this. Why don't you share it so the elders can listen too? Listening to Luo Qingshan's gentle tone, Yi Xingchen smiled mysteriously and looked at the elders below, saying, What is Huangfu Bubi's confidence based on? It's the longevity pill. Since that is the case, this emperor will use the very medicinal pill that gives Huangfu Bubi the most confidence to completely defeat him. This emperor wants to see whether that Huangfu Bubi will bow or not bow when he sees this emperor. Looking at the stunned elders below. At this moment, Yi Xingchen exuded an astonishing aura that swept across the 6 directions and engulfed the 8 wildernesses. This made Yi Xingchen appear like an ancient emperor, towering above all living beings, prompting involuntary reverence and worship. Chapter 44. The Power of the Life-Divine Spring and the Allegiance of Immortal Emperors. At this moment, hearing Yi Xingchen's incomparably domineering words, all the Yao race elders looked up at the standing Yi Xingchen, their eyes filled with excitement. The current Yi Xingchen exuded an astonishing aura that seemed capable of sweeping across the 6 directions and enveloping the 8 wastes. This made Yi Xingchen look like an ancient emperor, standing above all living beings, involuntarily inspiring reverence and worship. And Luo Qingshan, who was standing beside him, looked at his back, the back of a figure currently resembling an ancient emperor and radiating an astonishing aura. Her beautiful eyes filled with deep affection and pride. Seeing this mighty back, Luo Qingshan felt incredibly secure in her heart, as if this figure could shield her from all the world's difficulties and perils. Xingchen turned around, looked at the worship and deep affection in Luo Qingshan's eyes, smiled slightly, and said, "Wife, I recall you once mentioned that you went to the human race for several years, partly to gain experience and partly to search for a medicinal pill that could treat failure when attempting a breakthrough to a new realm. Have you found this medicinal pill now?" Hearing Xingchen's words, a trace of sadness flashed across Luo Qingshan's eyes. She shook her head slightly and said, "I found it. It is the supreme good fortune pill refined by Xingchen Palace. However, this pill is the foundation of Xingchen Palace. Even for human race powers, obtaining one is extremely difficult, let alone for our Yao race. But even if it's extremely difficult, this emperor must find the medicinal pill to treat those who failed their realm breakthrough. These clansmen were once top Yao race prodigies. They sacrificed too much for the Yao race. This emperor will not give up, even if there is only a sliver of hope." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, the elders below also wore gloomy expressions. Those powerful individuals are all Yao race seniors. Now, because their origin was damaged, they cannot achieve a breakthrough to a new realm and can only linger in the immortal emperor realm, unable to break through to the immortal emperor realm. If they could find a medicinal pill to treat this kind of injury, these seniors would not only recover, but combined with years of accumulation, would certainly be able to break through to the immortal emperor realm again. At that time, the entire Yao race power would become even stronger. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words and observing everyone's expressions, Xingchen looked at Luo Qingshan and sighed slightly. "Alas, wife, your husband is very disappointed. A dignified, 9th-rank alchemist is standing right in front of you, yet you completely ignored him. Your husband is truly disappointed." At this moment, everyone inside the Emperor's palace instantly changed color upon hearing Xingchen's words, looking up at him with expressions of excitement. Luo Qingshan, even more excited, rushed to Xingchen's side, took his hand, and asked with eyes full of anticipation, "Husband, does husband mean that you can refine this kind of medicinal pill?" Looking at Luo Qingshan's excited appearance, Xingchen pretended to be angry and snorted lightly. "Humph. A dignified 9th-rank alchemist was actually ignored by all of you. Your husband is very angry now, and the consequences will be severe." The elders below watched Xingchen pretending to be angry, and then looked at Luo Qingshan's expression. They shook their heads helplessly and wisely kept silent. At this moment, looking at Xingchen, who was acting like a child, Luo Qingshan smiled helplessly. Knowing exactly what this rascal was thinking, she leaned close to Xingchen's ear and whispered something. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen's eyes instantly lit up. He looked at the blushing Luo Qingshan and chuckled, earning him a roll of her eyes. The current Xingchen seemed like a completely different person. He smiled at Luo Qingshan and said, "Wife, have these seniors come to the Emperor's palace? Your husband will immediately treat them." What a joke. He possessed countless drops of life, divine spring rewarded by the system. A single drop could extend lifespan by 50 years, restore origin, and treat severe injuries. Simple injuries to the origin were nothing to worry about. Although these Yao race powerhouses could not achieve a breakthrough again, their realm had not regressed, indicating that they were merely injured in their origin by the heavenly tribulation, not by the heavenly Tao. If it were an injury inflicted by the heavenly Tao, the consequences would be severe. Not only would they be unable to achieve a breakthrough, but their own realm would slowly regress, and their strength would weaken until they turned into dry bones. Furthermore, they would be tormented by the heavenly Tao injury at all times, something no ordinary person could endure. At this moment, hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan was extremely excited, her eyes filled with anticipation. She quickly said, "Husband." Seeing Luo Qingshan's excitement, Xingchen did not wait for her to finish speaking and tightly grasped her hand. "Wife, rest assured, your husband understands. Just calmly invite those Yao race seniors to the Emperor's palace." Xingchen gave Luo Qingshan a reassuring look, tightened his grip on her hand, and spoke. Hearing her husband's words and seeing the reassurance in Xingchen's eyes, Luo Qingshan was full of excitement and immediately said, "Grand Elder, immediately invite those seniors to the Emperor's palace." Hearing Luo Qingshan's command, Grand Elder Wan Qinli dared not delay. He bowed slightly to Luo Qingshan and Xingchen before disappearing. At this moment, the remaining Yao race elders below looked at Xingchen with eyes full of excitement. If this emperor could truly heal those Yao race seniors, the Yao race would gain dozens of immortal emperor powerhouses, and the Yao race would instantly become a superpower in the divine wilderness, on par with the hidden world giant holy land powers. After a short while, dozens of Yao race powerhouses followed the Grand Elder into the Emperor's palace. After bowing to the two of them, these dozens of Yao race powerhouses looked at Xingchen with excited expressions. Seeing the excitement in the eyes of these Yao race seniors, Xingchen knew that the Grand Elder must have told them something. He smiled slightly and said, "Seniors, you are all the pillars of the Yao race. Presumably, you already know why the Empress invited you here. Since that is the case, this Emperor will not waste words. Seniors, please consume the life-divine spring placed before you." Looking at these Yao race powerhouses, they should have been figures at the old ancestor level of the Yao race. But because they failed their undergoing tribulation, they could only linger in the immortal Emperor realm. As Xingchen spoke, he waved his hand, and dozens of drops of life-divine spring, emitting dense life qi, appeared before these Yao race seniors. Everyone in the entire Empress Palace felt this extremely dense life qi. Looking at the greenery inside the Empress Palace that had begun to grow taller, everyone revealed expressions of shock, thinking to themselves, "What dense life qi?" It actually made the greenery grow taller in such a short time. Seeing the shocked expressions of the Yao race people, Xingchen spoke directly. "Seniors, please quickly consume the life-divine spring, then sit cross-legged, recover your internal injuries, and directly break through to the immortal Emperor realm." Hearing Xingchen's words, the dozens of Yao race powerhouses no longer hesitated. They immediately sucked the life-divine spring before them into their mouths, closed their eyes, and sat cross-legged. Everyone felt the life force emanating from the bodies of these Yao race powerhouses. At this moment, the bodies of these Yao race seniors were like a desert that had finally received sweet rain. The dense life qi continuously nourished their bodies and repaired their origin. Moreover, their lifespan mysteriously increased by 50 years, and the aura around them continuously grew stronger. This was the mighty power of a life-divine spring. After about an incense stick's time, all the Yao race seniors opened their eyes almost simultaneously, and waves of terrifying immortal Emperor Realm aura burst forth. Dozens of immortal Emperor Realm auras formed energy storms, pressing out in all directions. Feeling these terrifying auras, everyone else showed excitement. These Yao race seniors had all previously undergone terrifying heavenly tribulations. Because their origin was damaged, they could no longer achieve a breakthrough to the immortal Emperor Realm. Now that their origin injuries were healed, and since they did not need to undergo the heavenly tribulation again, combined with their accumulation over the years, they naturally achieved a breakthrough to the immortal Emperor realm. This instantly elevated the Yao race to a superpower on the divine wilderness continent, greatly exciting everyone in the Emperor's palace. At this moment, everyone's gaze turned toward Xingchen, their eyes filled with immense excitement and worship. The Yao race powerhouses who had achieved a breakthrough to the immortal Emperor realm immediately knelt on one knee before Xingchen and declared, "Thank you, this Emperor. Please accept our bow. Thank you, this Emperor. Please accept our bow." Seeing the Yao race seniors actually kneeling on one knee to Xingchen, everyone was shocked, and Luo Qingshan's eyes shone with joy. Among the Yao race, kneeling on one knee is a symbol of complete allegiance. How could the allegiance of dozens of immortal emperor powerhouses not shock them? Xingchen quickly asked these Yao race seniors to rise, saying, "We are all family. Seniors, there is no need for this. Please rise quickly." After hearing Xingchen's words, these Yao race seniors who had just achieved a breakthrough to the immortal emperor realm slowly stood up. However, the look in their eyes as they gazed at Xingchen was full of respect. Xingchen turned and took Luo Qingshan's hand. Seeing the joy and deep affection in her eyes, he laughed heartily, feeling a surge of heroic spirit. Today, all seniors have recovered their origin and broken through to the immortal emperor realm, allowing our Yao race to instantly become a superpower. We must celebrate. The moment Xingchen finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a scene that shocked everyone below appeared. Grand Elder Wan Qianli, upon seeing the scene before him, immediately began swallowing his saliva incessantly, completely losing the dignified demeanor expected of a powerhouse. Chapter 45. Xingchen's Grand Gesture, Yao Race Auction. At this moment, seeing the excited expressions of the crowd, Xingchen spoke up. Today, all seniors recovered their origin and achieved a breakthrough to the immortal emperor realm, allowing our Yao race to instantly become a superforce. This must be celebrated. This emperor is happy today, and I have gifts for everyone. Hearing Xingchen's words, everyone below immediately showed surprise. They had all witnessed Xingchen's gifts before. He rarely made a move, but when he did, it was certainly extraordinary. Thus, everyone looked at Xingchen with pleasant surprise, their eyes filled with expectation. As soon as his voice fell, Xingchen waved his hand, and a shocking scene appeared before everyone below. Everyone involuntarily muttered in their hearts. As expected, the Emperor Lord's gift is absolutely not simple. At this moment, hundreds of bottles appeared before everyone, bottles that seemed to be made of top-grade spirit stones. Then, Xingchen's voice continued. Everyone should have drunk this supreme, divine wine. The taste is quite good, but the alcohol content is extremely high, and everyone is already clear on its effects. 100 bottles for each person. Consider this a gift from this emperor. Looking at the hundreds of bottles of supreme, divine wine before them, everyone involuntarily swallowed, their eyes burning with fervor. They were all lovers of fine wine. Ever since they drank the supreme divine wine once, any wine brewed by the Yao race tasted like chewing wax in comparison. Therefore, they had always longed for the supreme divine wine and knew its value. They never expected that the Emperor Lord would give them 100 bottles each today. Excitement and fervor filled everyone's eyes. This was divine wine, where every sip was comparable to a 6th-grade medicinal pill. As if seeing the thoughts of these Yao race powerhouses, Xingchen waved his hand again, turned to look at Luo Qingshan, who was gazing at him tenderly, and spoke softly. Wife, here are 2 million bottles of supreme, divine wine. This will serve as welfare for our Yao race. Take them out for the clan members to drink during festivals and celebrations. The next moment, the entire Empress Palace burst into exclamations. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the dense mass of supreme, divine wine before them, letting out a sharp intake of breath. The scene was simply too spectacular. Luo Qingshan looked at Xingchen in utter shock, asking with some uncertainty. Husband, is all this really for the Yao race disciples' welfare? Isn't it a bit too much? Hearing Luo Qingshan's slightly agitated words, Xingchen smiled faintly and said gently, wife, don't worry. Your husband still has more. 2 million bottles isn't much. Wife can arrange them as you wish. Now our Yao race has gained dozens more immortal emperor powerhouses, allowing us to leap into the ranks of super forces. This is a matter worthy of celebration for the entire clan. Wife, please accept them and arrange them freely. Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan gave her husband a charming look, then waved her hand and stored the 2 million bottles of supreme divine wine. Seeing the empress put away the 2 million bottles of supreme divine wine, the people below stopped being reserved and excitedly stored the 100 bottles of divine wine in front of them. If they drank sparingly, these 100 bottles of divine wine would last them a long time. At this moment, the gazes they directed toward Xingchen were filled with gratitude. Seeing that everyone had stored the supreme divine wine, Luo Qingshan asked curiously, Husband, what was the life divine spring that the seniors consumed earlier? Hearing the empress ask, the people below also raised their heads. They were extremely curious, but they feared that such a divine substance was the Emperor Lord's secret, so they hadn't dared to ask. After all, they all knew that their Emperor Lord was always mysterious. On the surface, he appeared to be in the innate realm, but his true strength was unfathomable. Just the astonishing aura he exuded, one that transcended everyone else, sweeping across the universe, made them feel an urge to worship him. This was certainly not something someone in the innate realm could admit, but since the Emperor Lord preferred to remain mysterious, they felt it was even less appropriate to ask. Now, hearing the Empress ask, they all involuntarily raised their heads, their faces full of curiosity. Hearing Luo Qingshan's inquiry, Xingchen smiled faintly and said, What the seniors consumed just now was the life divine spring. Upon consumption, it restores origin, heals severe injuries, and prolongs longevity. A single drop can extend life by 50 years, making it a rare and top-grade divine item. Hearing Xingchen's words, everyone was greatly astonished. A single drop could extend life by 50 years and treat severe injuries. It truly deserved to be called a top-grade divine item. Seeing their surprised expressions, Xingchen continued. Didn't Shangqing Palace rely on their longevity pill to issue a challenge post to our Yao race? This emperor accepts the challenge. I will use this life divine spring to completely shatter Shangqing Palace's confidence. Let's see what expression Huangfu Bubi will have then. Everyone was shocked by Xingchen's words, and Luo Qingshan immediately exclaimed, Husband, such divine water is too precious. A single drop can extend life by 50 years and treat origin injuries. Shangqing Palace's longevity pill cannot compare at all. Wouldn't this be too wasteful? Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen smiled faintly and spoke dominantly. Since husband accepted the challenge post, I will not use trash like the longevity pill for the confrontation, or it would greatly diminish the status of this emperor. Moreover, if we don't fight, so be it. But since we are fighting, husband must fight a battle that knocks Xingchen Palace off its pedestal, making all forces in the divine wilderness understand that compared to the Yao race, Xingchen Palace is just a joke. At this moment, all the members of the Yao race in the Empress Palace were shaken by Xingchen's domineering voice, and their eyes toward Xingchen were filled with admiration. With such a domineering emperor lord, how could the Yao race not rise? Looking at Luo Qingshan, Xingchen continued. Tomorrow, husband will head to Wandan Pavilion. Wife, immediately have someone spread the news that the Yao race's Wandan Pavilion will hold a divine item auction in 7 days for a divine substance that can extend life by 50 years. Many forces will surely come then. Husband wants to see if the divine wilderness forces can restrain themselves. Through this auction, husband will make all divine wilderness forces understand that Xingchen Palace is nothing but a huge joke. Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan quickly said, Husband, Luo Qingshan will accompany you. It's a good chance to visit the human race territory with husband. Hearing Luo Qingshan's eager voice, Xingchen smiled faintly. Good. We will go together as husband and wife and take a tour of the human race territory. Also, have all Yao race immortal emperor powerhouses go to Wandan Pavilion as well. It is time for all forces in the divine wilderness to feel the might of the Yao race. Hearing Xingchen's words, the eyes of all Yao race powerhouses lit up and excitement appeared on their faces. How many years had it been since the Yao race had such an opportunity to feel proud? This time, it would surely shock all the forces. Grand Elder immediately dispatched disciples to spread the news. Within 1 day, this emperor wants every force in the entire divine wilderness to hear about the Yao race auction. Furthermore, all seniors who have successfully advanced to the immortal emperor realm will directly be promoted to the status of Yao race old ancestors. This emperor will issue an imperial edict to notify the entire clan. All old ancestors immediately take this emperor's command and head to the ancestral land to meet with the other Yao race old ancestors. Depart for Wandan Pavilion today to prevent any malicious disruption. If any is found, suppress it immediately. It is time for the Yao race to show its sharpness. Luo Qingshan, having regained the dominance befitting an empress, spoke authoritatively to all the Yao race members below. We respectfully follow the empress's imperial decree. We respectfully follow the empress's imperial decree. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, all Yao race members clasped their hands, bowed, and quickly turned to leave. Watching the figures of the departing Yao race powerhouses, Xingchen took Luo Qingshan's hand. Their eyes met, and at this moment, their hearts drew closer and closer. A great tree named Love grew taller and more flourishing in both their hearts. Chapter 46. Tiangong Mystic Treasure Shakes the Divine Wilderness. Early the next morning, Xingchen and Luo Qingshan woke up early. Since they were going to the Wandan Pavilion today, the two of them did not tease each other as usual. Luo Qingshan still had some matters concerning the Yao race to arrange. After telling Xingchen to wait for her at the Phoenix Perch Palace, she flew toward the Empress Palace. Watching Luo Qingshan's disappearing figure, Xingchen smiled slightly, walked to the window, looked at the beautiful scenery outside, and thought to himself, I should use this time to perform today's system check-in and see what rewards the system can give me today. Thinking of this, Xingchen immediately spoke to the system. System, begin today's check-in. As soon as Xingchen finished speaking, the system's pleasant check-in notification sounded in his ear. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to host for obtaining the reward. 1 million bottles of supreme divine wine, which have been stored in the system space for host. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to host for obtaining the reward. 1 Tiangong Mystic Treasure. The Tiangong Mystic Treasure was created by supreme existences in ancient times. After use, one can choose a designated location to instantly erect a magnificent palace or tower. Its defense is comparable to an immortal-grade divine weapon. Due to the extremely small number of them passed down, it is a rare and invaluable supreme mystic treasure. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to host for obtaining the reward. Illusion-breaking divine eye. The illusion-breaking divine eye, once fused by the host, can investigate all karma and break all illusions. Before this divine eye, everything returns to its essence, and any hidden means are completely ineffective. At this moment, Xingchen, standing by the window, listened to the series of pleasant sound from the system, feeling immensely excited. Although he was now a supreme expert in the Heavenly Emperor realm, every system reward still made Xingchen extremely emotional. As expected of the system, every move was a trump card. Looking at the million bottles of supreme divine wine added to the system's space, Xingchen's mouth curled up. This system was simply too considerate, knowing that he was running low on supreme divine wine and immediately rewarding him with 1,000,000 bottles. Happily retrieving the Tiangong mystic treasure from the system space, Xingchen carefully examined it. He found that the Tiangong mystic treasure was only palm-sized, dark golden all over, yet emitting a crystal-clear, jade-like radiance. This made Xingchen curious, and he couldn't help but ask the system, "System, can this Tiangong mystic treasure be retrieved after use?" As soon as Xingchen finished speaking, the system's voice echoed in his mind. "Ding, host, please note, the Tiangong mystic treasure is a supreme mystic treasure, and very few have been passed down. It cannot be retrieved after use. Host, please choose a location for using the Tiangong mystic treasure carefully." Hearing the system's voice, Xingchen dismissed the idea of using the Tiangong mystic treasure right now and carefully stored this extremely rare Tiangong mystic treasure back into the system space. Only then did he speak to the system. "System, fuse the illusion-breaking divine eye." Ding! The illusion-breaking divine eye is fusing. Fusion successful. Because host is the great Tao chaos body and possesses heaven-defying luck, the fusion rate reached 100%, allowing all the divine wonders of the illusion-breaking divine eye to be fully utilized. As soon as the system's voice fell, Xingchen felt a strange energy pass through his eyes. There was no pain from the fusion as he had imagined. Rather, there was a slight feeling of comfort. Moreover, the methods for using the illusion-breaking divine eye and its many divine wonders simultaneously appeared in Xingchen's mind. Xingchen slowly opened his eyes. A heaven-shaking divine might suddenly erupted from them, and Xingchen's eyes turned golden yellow. At this moment, the world in Xingchen's eyes underwent a massive change. The heavenly Tao law materialized, and immortal spiritual qi was within reach. Even the Yao race formation and Yao race immortal veins, originally hidden in the void realm and underground, clearly appeared in Xingchen's eyes. Even the guards of the Empress Palace displayed cultivation at the heavenly immortal realm in Xingchen's eyes. Despite the great distance, Xingchen could still see them clearly. At this moment, Xingchen seemed to possess X-ray vision. Just as the system said, everything returned to its essence, and any hidden means were a joke before the illusion-breaking divine eye. Nodding in satisfaction, Xingchen slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the golden yellow color in his eyes had completely disappeared. As long as Xingchen wished, he could activate the illusion-breaking divine eye with a thought at any time. And if he didn't want to, his eyes would not turn golden yellow. The scene shifts to the Xingchen Palace. Huangfu Bubi listened solemnly to the elder's report below, and a smile slowly appeared on his face. Finally, unable to restrain himself, he slammed the armrest of his chair and burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, good. Excellent. The Yao race actually plans to auction off a divine item 7 days from now that can extend lifespan by 50 years, and the quantity is not small. This is simply a huge joke. Divine items that can extend lifespan certainly exist on the entire divine wilderness continent. This emperor admits that, but there are things that can only be found by chance and not sought after. Only the longevity pill of our Xingchen Palace is the most common longevity medicinal pill. Although the price is high, it is a tangible existence." Hearing Huangfu Bubi's words, a white-haired old man below stood up and said, "Palace Master, since the Yao race dared to release this news, it is certainly not without reason. This matter concerns the face of the Yao race. That little girl Luo Qingshan is not brainless. She must possess such a divine item." Hearing the words of the white-haired old man below, Huangfu Bubi nodded slightly. What Elderbai said is not wrong. Luo Qingshan would never shoot at random. This concerns the face of the Yao race. If all the major forces go there, and the Yao race cannot produce this divine item, it won't just be a matter of losing face. They will directly offend all the forces in the divine wilderness. Luo Qingshan would not make such a decision. However, this emperor speculates that this divine item definitely exists, but the quantity will certainly not be large. Luo Qingshan's goal must be to use this divine item to exchange for longevity pills from the various major forces, thereby temporarily solving the problem of their longevity pill shortage. Such a lifespan-extending divine item is rare, since it can extend lifespan by 50 years. If this emperor refines it into a medicinal pill, the effect will definitely be even stronger. Extending lifespan by 100 years wouldn't be out of the question. This emperor might even be able to use this to break through to the realm of a ninth-rank alchemist. Hearing Huangfu Bubi's words, Elder Bai's eyes lit up, and he asked, "Does Palace Master mean?" "Oomph. That woman, Luo Qingshan, is probably waiting for this emperor to go." Luo Qingshan must know that this emperor, being an 8th-rank alchemist, would certainly not miss such a divine item. Since that is the case, why shouldn't this emperor fulfill her wish and make a trip? If Luo Qingshan can hand over this divine item, this emperor might not mind bestowing some longevity pills upon the Yao race. When this emperor advances to 9th rank and rules the world, what is a mere Yao race worth mentioning? At this moment, Huangfu Bubi's eyes radiated shocking ambition, and the corner of his mouth curled up as if everything was under his control. Elder Bai, pass down the order. 7 days from now, this emperor will personally lead people to the Wandan Pavilion. This emperor wants to see what Luo Qingshan will do. Will she obediently hand over the divine item, or will she struggle on whilst dying and put up a stubborn resistance? Regardless, this concerns this emperor's advance to 9th rank, and the divine item must be obtained. This emperor wants to see who dares to compete with the Shangqing Palace. Hearing Huangfu Bubi's voice, Elder Bai immediately bowed and assented. It is an ancient legend in the divine wilderness that a 9th-rank alchemist can rule the world. If the Palace Master truly becomes a 9th-rank alchemist, more powerful experts will surely follow and join. At that time, the Shangqing Palace will take another step forward, completely becoming a true super force, standing shoulder to shoulder with those true hidden world giant holy lands. In the future, they would no longer need to pay so much supreme spiritual qi to that force every year. At this moment, the Shangqing Palace was not the only one discussing this matter. All major forces across the entire divine wilderness continent were discussing it. No one could remain indifferent to a divine item that could extend lifespan by 50 years. Some forces even secretly sent messages to the hidden world giants behind them. The entire divine wilderness was completely shaken by a single decision made by Xingchen. Chapter 47. Appearance of the Emperor's Star, concealing the heavenly Tao. At this moment, the entire divine wilderness was completely shaken because of a decision made by Xingchen. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Xingchen, was currently sitting comfortably atop a massive kai phone, watching the clouds rapidly recede behind him, his face full of wonder. Seeing her husband's astonished expression, Luo Qingshan's lips curled slightly as she gently explained. "Husband, this is a kai phone. It possesses ancient phoenix bloodline, has extremely high intelligence, and is incredibly fast. It is Luo Qingshan's mount. It usually cultivates in Yao race's back mountain and is only summoned when Luo Qingshan travels. Its temperament is extremely gentle. Its strength is also formidable, comparable to the human race's immortal king realm." As if understanding Luo Qingshan's words, the kai phone let out a soft cry, its eyes filled with joy. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words and seeing the joy in the kai feng's eyes, Xingchen secretly marveled, realizing that the saying, "all things possess spirit," was completely true. "Husband, at the speed of the kai phone, we will reach the Wandan Pavilion in the time it takes an incense stick to burn." After a short rest at the Wandan Pavilion, Luo Qingshan will accompany husband to tour the human race territory. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen looked at the tenderness in her eyes, smiled slightly, and replied, "All right, I'll listen to my wife. Once we're done with business, we'll go have a good look around the human race territory." The scene shifts to Tianji City. Dozens of white-haired old men looked up at the dome inside the Tianji Great Hall. Countless stars streaked across it, the sky full of twinkling stars, and the sun and moon continuously rotated. This was precisely the divine artifact guarding Tianji City, the Tianji sky chart. At this moment, dozens of immortal sovereign realm, white-haired old men were discussing something heatedly, arguing back and forth, completely lacking the demeanor expected of powerful experts, their faces flushed and veins bulging. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man sitting above the Tianji Great Hall watched the scene below with a calm expression, as if he had long been accustomed to it. Suddenly, the middle-aged man looked up at the Tianji sky chart, his expression instantly changing drastically. He flashed down to the central area below, and with a slight lift of his hand, the dozens of flushed and arguing white-haired old men immediately fell silent. The middle-aged man spoke with a grave expression. "The Emperor's Star has appeared. The great era is approaching. The hidden world is emerging, and the divine wilderness will undergo a great change." Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the dozens of white-haired old men also changed color and looked up at the Tianji sky chart. One of the white-haired old men, who had been arguing the most fiercely just now, couldn't help but voice a slight doubt. The Emperor Star truly has appeared, but why is it in the central position? Shouldn't the Emperor Star be guarding the eastern quadrant of the Tianji sky chart? Hearing that elder's words, everyone was shocked to realize that the Emperor Star, which should have been guarding the eastern quadrant, had actually appeared in the center of the Tianji sky chart. Including the middle-aged man, everyone lowered their heads, calculating something with their fingers. A moment later, they all raised their heads in surprise. The middle-aged man looked even more incredulous. This emperor actually cannot deduce the reason why the Emperor Star, which should be guarding the east of the Tianji sky chart, appeared in the center. Could it be that a great emperor has concealed the heavenly Tao? That shouldn't be possible. Even if a great emperor expert concealed the heavenly Tao, this emperor shouldn't be completely unable to deduce anything. Could it be heavenly Tao? Watching the Tianji sky chart, the middle-aged man muttered, his face full of shock. Since the heavenly Tao is concealing the heavenly secrets, this emperor will see the location where the Emperor Star appeared. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, he casually waved his hand and struck out with a palm. A terrifying burst of immortal spiritual power entered the Tianji sky chart, and the entire chart instantly underwent a transformation. As if the heavens and earth descended, it instantly magnified, and the entire divine wilderness continent appeared before the man's eyes. Looking at the shining star radiating purple Emperor Qi, the middle-aged man actually muttered to himself. It's actually here, at the boundary between the Yao race and the human race. The Emperor Star appeared there. Could it be because of the Yao race auction event? The middle-aged man was none other than the master of Tianji City, a top power on the divine wilderness continent, immortal Emperor Wei Tianji. Tianji City is famous throughout the divine wilderness for calculating heavenly fortune and misfortune. It is said that its backing force is even more powerful, being the hidden world giant holy land, Xingchen Mountain. Many powers, when searching for treasures, exploring, or seeking people, would look for Tianji City to calculate the fortune or misfortune of their trip. Naturally, the price was not cheap, but every calculation made by Tianji City was extremely accurate, which is why all the powers on the divine wilderness continent trusted them deeply. Suddenly, streaks of divine radiance emanated from the entire Tianji sky chart, and then instantly dimmed, as if struck by some mysterious force, losing its original brilliance. What surprised the people of Tianji City even more was that the location of the Emperor Star could no longer be detected. Not even a trace of its aura remained, as if it had never appeared. This scene caused a massive shock in Wei Tianji's heart, and he spoke. As expected of the Emperor Star, it cannot be deduced, cannot be detected. Even its position only appeared for an instant before vanishing without a trace. However, this emperor cannot be mistaken about the Emperor Star's emergence. It seems the great era is approaching, and the divine wilderness is about to undergo a great change. Make arrangements. 3 days from now, this emperor will personally head to the Wandan Pavilion to see the life-extending divine item being auctioned by the Yao race, and also to see if I can sense the Emperor Star's location. Our Tianji City needs to plan ahead. Hearing Wei Tianji's words, the dozens of white-haired old men below immediately bowed in assent and turned to disappear. At this moment, Wei Tianji looked up at the Tianji sky chart, crystal divine radiance emanating from his eyes. He pointed a finger, and a beam of golden light shot into the Tianji sky chart and vanished. At this time, as Xingchen sat atop the Kai phone, the system's voice suddenly rang out. Ding! Someone is detected calculating heavenly secrets and deducing the host location. Does the host wish to activate the concealing the heavenly Tao function, preventing anyone from detecting it? The system's voice suddenly appearing in Xingchen's ear caused him to pause slightly. Someone was actually calculating heavenly secrets to deduce his location. How interesting. However, the thought of being watched wherever he went made Xingchen uncomfortable, so he immediately spoke to the system internally. System, immediately activate the concealing the heavenly Tao function. No sooner had Xingchen finished speaking than the system's voice rang out. Ding! The concealing the heavenly Tao function is now active. No one can deduce the host location. If anyone attempts to deduce the host, they will inevitably suffer a backlash. Hearing the system's words, Xingchen smiled slightly and said excitedly in his heart, System, this host absolutely loves you. You actually have a function like this. Ding! Please remain calm, host. This system is unique across the myriad realms and possesses every function. The host should not be surprised. Hearing the system's voice, Xingchen was speechless and thought internally. This system still has the same temper, but young master likes it. Huh, system. The next moment, Xingchen felt the Kai phone rapidly descending. He looked up and saw that they had already arrived at the Wandan Pavilion. The Kai phone landed steadily. The two flew down. Luo Qingshan extended her right hand, and the Kaifeng instantly understood, lowering its head and affectionately nudging Luo Qingshan's hand, its eyes full of joy. All right, you may return to the Yao race on your own. This emperor and my husband will return to the Yao race after some time. As if understanding Luo Qingshan's words, the Kaifeng raised its head and cried out. It spread its massive, multicolored wings, transforming into a 9-colored stream of light, soaring straight into the 9 heavens and vanishing. Inside the Wandan Pavilion, the Grand Elder, who had arrived early, brought all the members of the Yao race to the entrance of the Wandan Pavilion and bowed respectfully to Luo Qingshan and Xingchen. All members of the Yao race looked at Xingchen with boundless reverence. Xingchen smiled and greeted the Grand Elder and the others, causing a wave of excitement in the hearts of all the Yao race members. Looking at the 3-story pavilion before him, and then turning his head to look at the tall buildings in the human race territory in the distance, Xingchen frowned slightly. As if sensing the reason for Xingchen's frown, the Grand Elder whispered, "This emperor, our Wandan Pavilion, was established too hastily. Therefore," hearing the Grand Elder's words, Xingchen smiled slightly and said, "This emperor understands. However, our Yao race is not inferior to the human race in any aspect, and we cannot lag behind in this regard either. Moreover, the auction event held 7 days from now will see major powers attending. This Wandan Pavilion truly diminishes the prestige of the Yao race." Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan and the Grand Elder beside him both frowned simultaneously. Xingchen was right. Compared to the tall buildings of the human race in the distance, the architecture on the Yao race side was indeed rather shabby. Seeing Luo Qingshan frown slightly, Xingchen swept his divine sense across the area and discovered a massive open space between the human race and the Yao race, bustling with people coming and going. He couldn't help but ask, "Grand Elder, why are there only a few of us here at the Wandan Pavilion, while not far ahead? That area is bustling with people coming and going, including many members of both the human race and the Yao race." Hearing Xingchen's question, Luo Qingshan, who was standing beside him, smiled slightly, took Xingchen's hand, and began to explain. Only after hearing Luo Qingshan's explanation did Xingchen understand the reason. Looking at the Wandan Pavilion, which was only 3 stories high, Xingchen directly said something that shocked everyone. Chapter 48, A Shocking Act, The Might of the Tiangong Mystic Treasure. Only after hearing Luo Qingshan's explanation did Xingchen finally understand why there was no one else at Wandan Pavilion anymore. It turned out that between the Yao race and the human race lay an enormous open space originally meant to mark the boundary separating their territories. As time passed, this vast area became a trading ground for both races, and its population steadily grew. Because the place bordered the Demon Clan territory and offered abundant resources at low prices, more and more humans came to shop, and it gradually evolved into a lively little town. Humans also entered the Demon Clan territory to search for spirit plants and wondrous fruits. As long as they didn't trespass into the core regions, the Yao race paid no heed. That was why members of the Yao race could freely enter human race territory. In the past, Wandan Pavilion had been packed every day with customers seeking medicinal pills. Yet ever since the Xingchen Palace issued its warning, no power or individual dared buy pills refined by the Yao race for fear of offending the Xingchen Palace and losing access to the longevity pill. After the Yao race announced yesterday that in 7 days they would auction an item capable of extending lifespan by 50 years, many wished to visit Wandan Pavilion, only to be told they must wait until auction day itself. Thus, at present, only Yao race members remained inside Wandan Pavilion. Realizing this, Xingchen's eyes lit up. Perhaps he could seize the chance to change things. "Have all the old ancestors arrived?" Xingchen asked the Grand Elder. Hearing him, the Grand Elder immediately bowed, reporting to the Emperor, "Every old ancestor has arrived and is hiding deep within the Void Realm. They can appear at any moment once you and the Empress give the order." Xingchen smiled faintly, turned, and looked toward Luo Qingshan. Noticing her gazing, brows knit, at a distant, indistinct tall building, he gently took her hand and gave her a tender smile. Then, eyeing the 3-story Wandan Pavilion, he uttered words that stunned everyone nearby. "Grand Elder, collect every pill and item inside Wandan Pavilion. This emperor finds this building an eyesore. Such a structure cannot represent the face of the Yao race. This emperor will tear it down." At his command, the Grand Elder and surrounding Yao disciples gasped in shock, while Luo Qingshan beside him merely smiled. Seeing their reactions, Xingchen turned back to Luo Qingshan and, finding her watching him tenderly, asked with a smile, "My wife shows no surprise that her husband intends to demolish Wandan Pavilion." Hearing her husband's question, Luo Qingshan's smile deepened as she answered softly. Shan'er trusts her husband. If he wishes to tear it down, he must already have a plan, one that will keep the great powers of divine wilderness from laughing. Only then did the surrounding Yao race members suddenly understand. Right, how could they forget who the emperor is? He's the man they all admire. Every time he's spoken, has he ever failed? As expected, the empress knows him best. Realizing this, the Grand Elder wasted no more time and vanished in a flash. Moments later he reappeared, bowing to Xingchen. Emperor, every pill and item has been placed into a storage ring. Good. Many thanks, Grand Elder. With a casual wave, Xingchen caused the Wan Dan pavilion that had stood before them to vanish instantly, as if it had never existed. He had merely stored it within his system space. Ignoring everyone's stunned expressions, he knew that what would follow would likely shock them even more. He turned to Luo Qingshan, gave her a gentle smile, and said, Wife, let your husband perform a little trick. Don't be startled. I believe you'll love it. After speaking, he winked at her, earning a playful eye roll. The next instant, he addressed the system directly. System, use the Tiangong Mystic Treasure. Ding, Tiangong Mystic Treasure activating. Please choose a location and provide a name. Xingchen pointed to where the old pavilion had stood and declared, Wan Dan Pavilion. The moment he spoke, a flood of information about the soon-to-appear palace streamed into his mind. With a thunderous boom, the ground shook, and everyone watched in amazement. A majestic golden palace erupted from the earth, dragons coiling around its roofs and phoenixes soaring above, exuding a faint, awe-inspiring pressure. The palace rose 9 stories high, covering a vast area, its entire body shimmering with golden light. On the upper plaque, the 3 characters, Wan Dan Pavilion, blazed with golden radiance, auspicious clouds swirling around them, divine power unending. It seemed carved from the very laws of the Tao, brimming with boundless might. Xingchen gazed at the splendid edifice, nodded in satisfaction, and smiled. Recalling the details that had just entered his mind, he was even more pleased. Everything was fully equipped, exactly as expected of a system product. The 9th floor was luxuriously appointed. He immediately decided it would be his and his wife's private residence, off-limits to outsiders. Only such a Wan Dan pavilion could match the dignity of the Yao race. Luo Qingshan and the Yao race members stared, mouths agape, eyes wide with shock. Though somewhat accustomed to the emperor's habit of astounding them, this time he had surpassed their understanding. With a single point and a word, a new, grander Wan Dan pavilion had appeared. Who could remain calm? Turning to see their stunned expressions, Xingchen smiled and asked Luo Qingshan, Wife, do you like it? Only then did she come back to her senses. Her flawless face flushed as she joyfully leapt into his arms and exclaimed, Shauna loves it. Husband always brings wonderful surprises. Seeing the Empress and Emperor so affectionate, the Yao race members beamed, as though forgetting their earlier shock. Noticing their smiles, Luo Qingshan shyly stepped out of Xingchen's embrace and gave him a charming sidelong glance. Spotting figures flying toward them in the distance, Xingchen addressed the Grand Elder. Grand Elder, the tremor must have drawn attention. Take some men and explain the situation. Also, this new Wan Dan pavilion has 9 floors. The 9th is closed to the public, a sign guard so it may serve as the Empress's and my resting place. The remaining 8 floors are for our people. Arrange them as you see fit. All facilities and items are in place. Familiarize yourself and prepare for the auction. Should any power from Divine Wilderness arrive early, you may welcome them into Wan Dan Pavilion. Then Xingchen's aura shifted. A terrifying, domineering intent rose as he addressed every Yao disciple. Remember, our Yao disciples are never to be bullied, nor do we bow to any power, yet we also never oppress others. If anyone deliberately stirs up trouble, suppress them at once. Fear no backlash. Whatever happens, this emperor will answer for it. With that, he took Luo Qingshan's hand and strode into Wan Dan Pavilion. His words set every Yao race member's heart aflame, eyes blazing with fervor. This was their emperor, domineering and inscrutable. Domineering, yet unfathomable. Hidden in the void realm, the Yao race old ancestors gazed at the astonishing transformation below and, hearing Xingchen's bold declaration, felt pride swell in their hearts. The great emperor's foresight far surpassed theirs. With such an emperor, the Yao race would surely regain the glory of ancient times. Chapter 49 Tender Affection, the Beauty of Luo Qingshan. At this moment, the ancient Yao race old ancestor hidden within the void watched the astonishing changes below. Hearing Xingchen's overwhelmingly dominant words, a look of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. The great emperor ancestor's perspective is indeed far higher than theirs, As the great emperor ancestor said, the ancient glory of the Yao race will surely blossom in Xingchen. If anyone or any force dares to provoke maliciously at this auction, it will be the Yao race's moment to reveal its strength. The scene shifts to inside Wan Dan Pavilion. Luo Qingshan looked at the vast space inside Wan Dan Pavilion, feeling a surge of delight. The entire Wan Dan Pavilion features a massive central platform perfect for holding the auction, surrounded by a hall and private rooms that can be chosen according to guests' needs. The two of them arrived at the 9th floor, and what they saw made Luo Qingshan even more thrilled. The whole 9th floor is a seamless whole, with interior decor that is grand and luxurious yet brimming with greenery, creating a fresh and pleasant atmosphere. It includes study rooms, bedrooms, living rooms, kitchens, and everything else. At a single glance, Luo Qingshan fell in love with it. Seeing Luo Qingshan's happy expression, Xingchen couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Although the system transmitted Wan Dan Pavilion's information into my mind in advance, seeing the actual place is far more stunning. Suddenly, Luo Qingshan let out a delighted shout. "Husband, husband, come quickly, it's so beautiful here, really beautiful." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen gave a helpless smile and shook his head. Perhaps this is his wife's truest side. Only in front of him does she reveal her most genuine self. All these years, for the sake of the Yao race, Luo Qingshan has devoted everything to it, abandoning everything she once loved. Following the voice, Xingchen entered the living room and saw a massive balcony. Seeing Luo Qingshan's most genuine smile, he silently swore never to let anyone ruin that beautiful smile. "Husband, come quickly. From here you can see the human race's territory and a nearby town. I never expected that after all these years this place would become so prosperous. The scenery looks much more beautiful now." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen moved behind her, wrapped his arms around her slender waist, and said softly, "It's beautiful, but my wife is even more beautiful." Hearing her husband's words, Luo Qingshan felt a secret joy. Her exquisite face flushed with rosy light. She looked up coquettishly at Xingchen and shyly said, "Only you, husband, can see the beauty of Shar." In that moment, Luo Qingshan's words were more effective than any sweet talk, nearly turning Xingchen into a wolf. Feeling her husband's change, Luo Qingshan gasped, blushed, and slipped away. Luo Qingshan's voice floated through the air. "Husband, Shar will go down to arrange things with the Grand Elder. There are some places to watch over in the next few days. Later, let's stroll around the town ahead." Before leaving, she gave Xingchen a fierce stare. No anger in her eyes, only tenderness. Seeing his shy wife run away, Xingchen's mouth curled up, his eyes full of indulgence. Watching the people departing from below Wan Dan Pavilion, Xingchen's divine sense swept over them, and everyone's voices filled his mind. The scene shifts again. Below Wan Dan Pavilion, the Grand Elder was addressing some onlookers, saying something. Hearing the Grand Elder, the people gradually left. Some of these people came to the town to do business and earn spirit stones, while others were covert agents of various forces, checking whether any other faction would attend the Yao race's auction. Some came to explore the Yao race and harvest spiritual plants and elixirs. These people kept looking back, eyes showing shock, muttering as they walked. "Did you see? The Yao race is becoming more mysterious." In an instant, a magnificent palace rose from the ground. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, who could believe it? Right, and Wan Qinli even said this Wan Dan Pavilion was a gift from their Yao race's great beings. Did you notice the plaque with the 3 big characters, Wan Dan Pavilion? The faint pressure it exudes is terrifying. This pavilion is at least a celestial treasure. Indeed, lately the Yao race often produces strange heavenly phenomena. Moreover, not long ago, during the Demon Empress's grand wedding, even the Tao personally sent congratulations. Witnesses said the Tao's law descended, flowers rained from the sky, golden lotuses surged from the earth. Various celestial anomalies lasted for an hour. That's true. I was nearby then. The scene is still vivid in my memory, though with a pity. A young man turned his head toward the magnificent Wan Dan Pavilion and spoke. "Yes, such a scene is once in 10,000 years. I've heard that those who see it can feel, from afar, the power of the Tao's law, deepening their understanding of the law. But the pity you mentioned is..." A middle-aged man beside him responded after hearing the young man's words. "Haven't you heard? Across the divine wilderness continent, who doesn't know the Demon Empress, the #1 beauty on the continent's ranking, Luo Qingshan? Her husband is merely a human with cultivation only at the innate realm. This has turned Luo Qingshan into a joke across the divine wilderness. Moreover, Many human prodigies who once pursued the Demon Empress have spoken out, vowing to teach this man a lesson. I've heard many factions are secretly investigating the true identity of the Demon Empress's husband. The young man, hearing the middle-aged man's question, replied with a hint of jealousy. Such a huge matter has already caused a stir across the divine wilderness. Few haven't heard of it. Since the person the Empress chose even received personal congratulations from the Tao, his background must be extraordinary. The claim that his strength is only innate might just be rumor. Another man, eyes flashing, addressed the young and middle-aged men. Hey, you don't know this? A friend of mine is a disciple of the Xingchen sect. He personally saw it. I've heard this guy is extremely handsome, with a transcendent aura. Perhaps the Demon Empress chose him because of that. The young man who spoke first said mysteriously, "No way. The Demon Empress is such a figure. The human prodigy who once pursued her was not only handsome and ethereal, but also backed by a powerful force. If the Empress could choose him, there must be something we don't know." Another man, hearing their conversation, whispered similarly. As soon as the man finished speaking, the group fell silent. Indeed, there must be something they're unaware of. The Yao race is becoming ever more mysterious. Just a few days ago, they suddenly started selling first-grade elixirs, whose quality rivaled second-grade elixirs from Xingchen Palace. Yet the price was cheap, attracting countless human factions. If Xingchen Palace hadn't issued a decree, any faction could brew longevity pills, provided they no longer purchased Yao race elixirs. No one knows how popular Yao race elixirs have become. Yesterday, the Yao race announced they possessed a divine artifact that could extend life by 50 years, causing a sensation across the divine wilderness. All of this happened so abruptly that they feel the Yao race is becoming increasingly mysterious. A group turned to look behind them at the Golden Palace, curiosity in their eyes, chatting as they slowly vanished. At this moment, Xingchen, seated on the 9th floor of one Dan pavilion, heard the departing crowd's words and gave a helpless smile. No matter the world, gossip is what people love to discuss most. But one thing Xingchen knows clearly: those so-called prodigies must never be provoked. Otherwise, Xingchen won't hesitate. Any prodigy belonging to that faction will be slapped dead. While pondering this, Luo Qingshan's gentle voice came from behind. "Husband, everything is arranged. It's still early. Let's go stroll around the town ahead." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen turned his head, eyes flashing with amazement. At that moment, Luo Qingshan wore a white veil, a red palace-style gown that perfectly traced her figure, making her even more enchanting. Now, Luo Qingshan's beauty resembled a descending goddess, stunning beyond compare. Chapter 50, Touring Together, Tianbao Hall. At this moment, hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen turned to look at her and was momentarily stunned, a flash of amazement in his eyes. At this instant, Luo Qingshan wore a white veil and a crimson palace gown that hugged her curves to perfection, making her even more bewitching and alluring. Her beauty was like a goddess descending to earth, incomparably radiant. Seeing the awe in her husband's eyes, Luo Qingshan secretly rejoiced, gave a charming smile, and said, "Husband, what's wrong? Let's go." Hearing her, Xingchen rose, walked to her side, took her hand, and said gently, "My dear, you are truly beautiful." Sensing the love in his heart, Luo Qingshan smiled enchantingly, shot him a coquettish glance, slipped her arm through his, and the two chatted and laughed their way downstairs, planning to stroll through the town ahead. Every member of the Yao race who saw them bowed respectfully. The Grand Elder was leading people in inspecting the entire one Dan pavilion. When he saw Luo Qingshan and Xingchen come downstairs, he immediately bowed to them. Xingchen smiled faintly and said to the Grand Elder, "Grand Elder, no need for courtesy. The powers of the divine wilderness are extremely interested in this emperor. I don't want to be watched every day. Pass this emperor's order, from now on, within one Dan pavilion, and even within human race territory. When you see this emperor, no bowing or formalities. Pretend you don't know me." Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan gave a helpless smile. She knew her husband's temperament all too well. At that moment, the Grand Elder heard the order and immediately bowed. As the emperor commands, this old man will pass it down at once. Xingchen gently raised the Grand Elder. Watching the busy Yao disciples around, he casually waved his hand and hundreds of bottles of supreme, divine wine appeared before the Grand Elder. "The next few days will be busy. These 100 bottles of supreme, divine wine are for you to distribute as rewards for the disciples." Seeing the 100 bottles suddenly appear, the surrounding Yao disciples' eyes burned with desire. They had all tasted this wine and knew its benefits. Thus, when Xingchen produced the supreme divine wine, they were all excited, their gazes blazing. The Grand Elder looked at the bottles before him and sighed inwardly. No wonder the Emperor's prestige among the Yao race was so high, surpassing even the Empress. There was good reason. Many thanks, Emperor. This old man thanks you on their behalf. The instant the Grand Elder finished speaking, every Yao disciple bowed toward Xingchen and shouted, Emperor is mighty! Emperor is mighty! Xingchen smiled and bade them rise, then took Luo Qingshan's hand and walked toward the distant town. Luo Qingshan gazed at her smiling husband, her eyes full of tenderness. And every member of the Yao race watched Xingchen's fading figure, their adoration growing ever deeper. Luo Qingshan and Xingchen did not fly at speed. They strolled leisurely, enjoying the scenery along the way, laughing and chatting as they arrived at the bustling trade town. Worthy of being the greatest trading hub of human and Yao races, the place thronged with people and activity, far from the dirty, chaotic scene Xingchen had imagined. Stalls lined both sides of the street with dazzling wares, spirit medicines, immortal plants, secret treasures, celestial weapons, skyfallen divine stones, treasure maps. Hawkers' cries rang out without end. Of course, many items on the stalls were real or fake, depending entirely on one's discernment. Unlike the tall shops ahead whose goods, though pricier, were guaranteed genuine. Along the way, Luo Qingshan and Xingchen became the center of attention, especially Luo Qingshan. Though veiled, her flawless bearing and natural air of command drew countless glances. Many Yao folk, unable to see her face, nevertheless recognized the smiling Xingchen beside her. That transcendent aura and familiar visage were unmistakable. If that was their emperor, then the woman beside him, radiating peerless bearing, must be their empress. Several Yao people, about to bow upon seeing Xingchen, suddenly heard his gentle voice in their minds. No need for courtesy, go about your business. This emperor and the empress are simply strolling and do not wish to be disturbed. The sudden, gentle voice in their minds made the Yao folk instantly halt their movements. Watching the emperor smile as he passed, they exchanged glances, quietly packed up their wares, and fell in behind the pair, subtly forming a protective ring around them. When Xingchen noticed, he glanced at Luo Qingshan. She merely smiled, then casually waved her hand. Seeing her gesture, the Yao folk seemed to understand at once, returned to their stalls, and stopped following. Soon a figure appeared bearing the Grand Elder's order, whispered to the Yao vendors, and they quickly dispersed. In moments, every Yao in the trade district had received the Grand Elder's command. Anyone who saw the Emperor or Empress was to act as if they did not know them. No formal salutations. Meanwhile, Luo Qingshan and Xingchen entered a shop called Tianbao Hall. The store's unique facade instantly caught Luo Qingshan's eye. Like a young girl, she laughed and pulled Xingchen inside. Tianbao Hall was not crowded, and its wares far exceeded those of the street stalls. Various immortal plants, spirit pills, celestial weapons, and secret treasures, all of higher grade than outside. The pair's bearing was transcendent. The veiled Luo Qingshan in particular drew the gazes of many young men. When they sensed Xingchen was only at the innate realm, their eyes lit up. They wanted to approach her, but sensing the commanding aura Luo Qingshan unconsciously exuded, they instantly lost courage. Recently, the major powers had arrived in the trade town. Though none stayed at Wandan Pavilion, they had settled within human race territory. From time to time, disciples of great sects came to stroll and shop. Though Luo Qingshan's aura was otherworldly, her unfathomable cultivation marked her as no ordinary person. No one wished to offend a disciple of a great power. When misfortune struck, they would be the ones to suffer. Some flowers, however beautiful, were not to be touched at will. Suddenly, a coquettish voice rang out. Everyone turned toward its source. Young Master Lung, Zue Rao likes this hair ornament. Will you buy for Zue Rao, please? A pink gauze-clad woman of bewitching beauty clung to a slightly wicked-looking young man, acting spoiled. Her figure was fiery and exuded seductive charm, especially her lips, lush and slightly upturned. In an instant, she drew the heated gazes of everyone in Tianbao Hall, young and old alike. The young man gave a wicked smile, slipped an arm around her slender waist, and said, "Since Zue Rao likes it and it wins a beauty smile, this young master will buy it for you." He lifted her chin with a finger and added with a wicked grin, "How annoying." The woman named Zue Rao cooed coquettishly. Her flirtatious tone made the already grinning young man laugh even more wildly. Xingchen glanced once, then pulled Luo Qingshan toward another counter. He had no interest in such a woman. Best to keep away. "Apologies, this king has taken a liking to this hair ornament. Look elsewhere." A sudden, authoritative voice made everyone turn toward its source. Chapter 51. using momentum to suppress Bai Li Tu's shocking killing intent. At this moment, a majestic voice suddenly rang out. "Apologies, this hair ornament has caught this king's eye. Look for something else." Hearing that voice, the crowd finally noticed a middle-aged man in bright yellow brocade standing at the entrance of Tianbao Hall. At his words, Zue Rao's sultry voice sounded, leaving the young men nearby tingling. "Young Master Lung." Hearing her, the Lung scion's eyes blazed as if dosed with chicken blood, and he sneered. "Oomph. You fancy it, so it's yours? If you fancy the whole Tianbao Hall, would the hall belong to you too? What a joke." Eyeing the gate-crashing man who styled himself this king, the Lung scion was full of disdain. On the divine wilderness continent, countless nobles called themselves king. With his own backing, he paid the newcomer no heed. Hearing the voice, the Tianbao Hall owner glanced over, outwardly calm, yet inwardly shaken. Why has that killing god come? Could he be here for the Yao race auction too? The middle-aged man merely flicked a casual glance at the Lung scion. In that instant, Lung felt a crushing pressure bear down, as though plunged into an ice pit, cold sweat drenching his back. The hall owner shot him a look of contempt, then smiled. "Ah, young master jokes. Since this gentleman has taken a liking, the hair ornament is his. If Miss Zue Rao fancies something else, please look around. Every item in Tianbao Hall is one of a kind." Hearing the owner, the Lung scion stayed silent. Zue Rao tried to speak, but he clamped a hand over her mouth, then called to the gate. "I am Lung Aofeng, core disciple of Divine Blade Immortal Palace. May I ask the senior's name?" By now the wickedness had vanished from Lung Aofeng's face. He forced calm into his voice. The onlookers gasped. "So that's Lung Aofeng, ranked 20th on the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking. A prodigy said to be heavenly immortal and born with the heavenly saber saint body, already mastering the 5th stance of the palace's supreme art, 9 heavens cleaving forms. That ranking was 3 years ago. He's even stronger now. When the list updates in half a year, he'll likely break the top 10. Amid the chatter, pride filled Lung Aofeng's face, and he had reason. Born with the heavenly saber saint body, monstrous aptitude, and backed by top sect, any 1 point was enough to swagger. Hearing him, the middle-aged man stepped forward. With each stride his aura surged, aimed squarely at Lung Aofeng, who clenched his teeth, trembling, barely holding on, as though he might collapse at any moment. One more step, and Lung knew he would be overwhelmed. The man's eyes looked down on an ant as he planted that final stride. "Art!" Lung Aofeng couldn't help yelling, cold sweat streaming as he snapped back to his senses. Beside him, Zue Rao cooed. "Young Master Lung, what happened to you?" The crowd stared. Lung Aofeng suddenly shaking, drenched in sweat, eyes full of fear, astonishing everyone. Looking up again, Lung Aofeng realized the man had never moved. He himself had been drawn into an illusion by the other's aura alone. "Divine Blade, Immortal Palace. Who is Lung Lingtian to you?" At the question, the arrogance vanished from Lung Aofeng's face. He quietly answered, "He is my father." Only then did the man speak. "Be gone. For the sake of a past acquaintance with your father, today's matter ends here. Dare defy this king again, and you die on the spot." Lung Aofeng shuddered, bowed hastily, and left with Zue Rao without a backward glance, panic flashing in his eyes. Just now, Lung Aofeng had already heard his Dao Guardian's voice transmission. This middle-aged man was actually the notorious immortal lord powerhouse of the divine wilderness continent, Bai Li Tu, a man infamous for being extremely hard to deal with. At the same moment, Zue Rao's face was also full of panic. The seductiveness she'd shown earlier was gone. She slipped away in silence, evidently having received some news as well. Bai Li Tu, true to his name, was known throughout the divine wilderness for massacring everyone within 100 li. He claimed that killing 1,000 made one a soldier, 10,000 a general, and 100,000 a king. Hence he often styled himself as this king. Possessing mighty strength and a ruthless heart, he acted solely on personal whim. Once, he hunted down a first-rate divine wilderness force that had offended him, chasing tens of thousands of people for hundreds of li, and became even more infamous. Although his cultivation was only at the Divine Lord realm, he had encountered a stroke of fortune. His speed was so great it was rarely seen in the divine wilderness. Even immortal emperor experts couldn't keep him trapped. Because he once slaughtered 10,000 members of a top-tier power without leaving a single survivor, the entire divine wilderness was shaken. Numerous forces pursued him, yet even an immortal emperor failed to detain him, thereby offending Bai Li Tu. With a vengeful nature, Bai Li Tu began ceaselessly killing disciples of that immortal emperor's sect. Every attempt to corner him only invited even crazier retaliation, leaving that sect in misery. Its disciples were slain to the point that no one dared step outside the sect gates. In the end, The immortal emperor himself spoke out. Rumor says he gave Bai Li Tu a huge number of spirit stones to settle the matter. Since then, few powers have been willing to offend him. At this moment, Bai Li Tu arrived before the Tianbao Hall's proprietor and gave the man a glance. The boss immediately beamed and respectfully presented the hair ornament with both hands, hoping this god of slaughter would leave quickly. Otherwise, given his unpredictable temper, Tianbao Hall wouldn't be doing any business today. Suddenly, a delighted cry rang out. Right then, the veiled Luo Xingchen held a crystalline jade hairpin that shimmered with light. She looked joyfully at Xingchen and said, "Husband, does this pin look nice?" Beside her, Xingchen watched the happy Luo Xingchen, smiled faintly, and said gently, "Lovely. Let your husband put it on for you." With that, he took the jade hairpin from her hand and moved to place it in her hair. Suddenly, an imperious voice rang out again. "This king has taken a fancy to that hairpin. Pick something else." It was Bai Li Tu. Seeing Luo Xingchen's stunning figure, his eyes lit up, and he spoke at once. As a man of experience, Bai Li Tu instantly recognized her peerless bearing. That natural-born nobility and elegance was something a woman like Zue Rao could never match. How could such a woman marry an innate realm ant? It's a complete waste of heaven's gift. A woman that magnificent only deserves this king, Bai Li Tu thought to himself after discerning Xingchen's cultivation at a glance. Yet what shocked everyone was that the pair seemed not to have heard him at all. Luo Xingchen maintained her posture, waiting for Xingchen to pin the ornament in her hair. And Xingchen, still gentle, slowly inserted the pin into her dark tresses. When he finished, he softly murmured, "So beautiful." The two treated Bai Li Tu as though he were thin air and simply did as they pleased. Seeing their reaction, Bai Li Tu froze for a moment. He had never imagined anyone would dare ignore him. What he didn't know was that one of them was the Demon Empress, a being stronger than he was, backed by the Yao race. Now, a superpower rivaling those hidden world giant holy lands. As for the other, needless to say, Xingchen could crush him with a single finger, easier than squashing an ant. Watching their affection right now, Bai Li Tu flew into instant fury, as though someone had dared touch what he considered his private possession. Subconsciously, he had already marked Luo Xingchen as his woman. A terrifying killing intent then surged straight toward Xingchen. Having once slaughtered 100,000 people, even a sliver of Bai Li Tu's murderous aura was more than an innate realm cultivator could withstand. At this instant, everyone inside Tianbao Hall sensed that dreadful killing intent. Fortunately, it wasn't aimed at them. Even so, they felt as though they'd been plunged into ice-cold water and instinctively circulated all their immortal spiritual power to resist, only then feeling a bit better. Yet the next moment, something that stunned everyone, including Bai Li Tu, happened. Chapter 52. The death of Bai Li Tu shakes Trading City. At this moment, Bai Li Tu's body erupted with a terrifying, heaven-shaking killing intent that bore down on Xingchen. His eyes filled with disdain. A mere innate realm ant actually possessed a woman of such bearing. Though she wore a special veil that even divine sense couldn't penetrate, the natural nobility and grace she exuded made it clear she was a rare beauty. A woman like this was absolutely not something an innate realm worm could claim. The dreadful killing intent made everyone else in Tianbao Hall feel as though they'd been plunged into ice-cold water, and they instinctively circulated their immortal spiritual power to resist. Their gazes toward Xingchen brimmed with pity, and an ant taking a woman of such caliber out without a single guard was simply fresh meat on display. Now it seemed the boy was doomed, no matter how powerful the force behind him. What use was it? No faction would start a war for an innate disciple, especially against this killing god. Notorious and hard to handle, he was someone few powers dared offend after the last incident. Yet the next instant, something that stunned everyone, including Bai Li Tu, happened. The dreadful pressure born of that killing intent passed the man in white robes like a gentle breeze, only lifting the hem of his robe. Nothing else occurred. It was as though the terrifying pressure had no effect on him. Bai Li Tu's pupils shrank, shock written across his face. Beside them, the smiling shopkeeper of Tianbao Hall narrowed his eyes, equally incredulous. Just as Bai Li Tu's pressure was about to crush the man, the stunning woman casually waved her hand. The gesture seemed harmless, yet the killing intent vanished without a trace. Though it escaped everyone else's notice, Bai Li Tu clearly sensed it. Only now did he realize this noble woman was a supreme expert. To dispel his pressure so effortlessly, her strength could not be low. She might even surpass him. So what? The realization piqued Bai Li Tu's interest. Only a woman like her was worthy of him. His murderous gaze toward Xingchen intensified. Did you not hear this king's words? I've taken a fancy to this hairpin. A mere innate ant dares ignore me again and again. Hearing Bai Li Tu once more, Xingchen still paid no heed. Luo Qingshan, however, was displeased. Her brows knit as she regarded him with disgust. She had finally managed a stroll with her husband, yet someone had to spoil it. Looking at Xingchen, she said irritably, "Husband, where did this fly come from, buzzing so annoyingly? My good mood is ruined. Let's go. I've lost all interest." Xingchen merely smiled at her words and replied, "No need to fret, my dear. It's only a fly. Swat it away." The instant his voice fell, Tianbao Hall fell deathly silent. Everyone instinctively retreated, clearing the main hall. No one wished to antagonize this killing god. Throughout the divine wilderness, few had never heard of Bai Li Tu. Bai Li Tu stared as if at a fool, then burst into laughter. Truly the newborn calf fears no tiger. A worm dares mock me? Boy, do you think the woman beside you can save you with her strength? Today I'll teach you. Before absolute speed, all power is meaningless. The moment the words left his mouth, his terrifying killing intent surged out, freezing the very air of Tianbao Hall. In the next instant, Bai Li Tu vanished. Even Luo Qingshan's heart skipped at the speed. Such speed, a dreadful killing intent, wrapped in boundless momentum, shot toward Xingchen. Luo Qingshan started to intervene, but catching the playful gleam in her husband's eyes, she understood. He was up to his tricks again. She rolled her eyes coquettishly at him, her face full of tender affection. In that instant, Bai Li Tu appeared behind Xingchen, jabbing a finger wreathed in devastating energy, intent on shattering his skull. Suddenly, every hair on Bai Li Tu's body stood on end. A primal terror descended. To his horror, the speed he prided himself on seemed to have failed. The innate realm man actually matched his velocity, turning to shoot him a mocking, contemptuous look. His entire body seemed to have lost all sensation. He couldn't move. At that instant, Bai Li Tu truly panicked. He couldn't even shift his eyes. A mysterious force had locked him in place. What terrified him more was that his mind could still think and his eyes could still see the figure of the man ahead. Yet he couldn't budge a fraction. The next moment, Bai Li Tu watched in horror as his consciousness blurred, as though he were sinking into boundless darkness. At that point, the whole Tianbao Hall fell silent. It had happened in an instant, and no one knew what had transpired. But the following scene shocked everyone to the core. There stood Bai Li Tu, frozen in a bizarre posture, his face twisted with terror. The man in white robes, however, acted as if nothing had happened. Smiling gently, he took the woman's hand, walked up to the Tianbao Hall's proprietor, and calmly asked, "Boss, how many spirit stones for this hairpin?" Hearing Xingchen's words, the boss snapped back to his senses. Eyes full of awe, he waved his hands at once and said, "If the young master likes it, it's free. No spirit stones needed." Xingchen gave him a slight smile, flicked a top-grade immortal stone into the boss's hand, and then, still smiling, led Luo Qingshan away. Staring at the top-grade immortal stone in his palm and sensing the dense immortal spiritual power within, the Tianbao Hall boss shuddered. This was an extremely rare top-grade immortal stone from the divine wilderness continent. A single piece was worth 100,000 top-grade spirit stones. Watching the departing figures of Xingchen and Luo Qingshan, the boss was stunned. This time Bai Li Tu had kicked a true iron plate. He couldn't help chuckling and remarked, "How does it feel to kick a real iron plate this time?" Seeing terror on the face of the god of slaughter, priceless. The Tianbao Hall boss addressed Bai Li Tu as he gazed toward the doorway, through which Xingchen had vanished. When no reply came, he turned and saw Bai Li Tu still frozen in that same pose. His brow creased. By now everyone in Tianbao Hall had noticed Bai Li Tu's state and cautiously gathered around. A bold woman even poked him with a finger. Bai Li Tu still didn't react, leaving even the boss dumbfounded. He stepped forward and slapped Bai Li Tu's shoulder, who toppled rigidly to the floor, maintaining that exact posture. Instantly the hall erupted. The infamous god of slaughter of the divine wilderness had been erased without a sound. Only then did everyone notice the horror etched on Bai Li Tu's face. He must have faced some immense terror before death. Utterly terrifying, what identity does that man in white robes possess to silently wipe out the god of slaughter? A guest inside Tianbao Hall exclaimed, "You fool! That man is only in the innate realm. How could he kill the god of slaughter? It must be the power behind him." A mighty guardian from a formidable force struck Bai Li Tu down without a whisper. Otherwise, why would that peerless beauty marry a mere innate cultivator? His companion shot back. Meanwhile, the Tianbao Hall boss mused. Someone who can casually toss out a top-grade immortal stone and has a stunning woman at his side. Though only innate, his aura is matchless. Could he be a disciple of a hidden world, giant holy land? Only a guardian from a hidden world giant holy land would have the power to slay Bai Li Tu so silently. The more he pondered, the more convinced he became. Hearing the surrounding chatter, he spoke up. Let's stop guessing. Today everyone came to Tianbao Hall. Let's be happy. Though Bai Li Tu is dead, the treasures on his body won't be few. Plenty of people and powers hate him. I'm sure someone will pay for his corpse. Spread the word. Whatever spirit stones we earn, we split equally. How about it? At his words, everyone's eyes lit up. Worthy of a merchant, his mind turned fast. And so Bai Li Tu, already dead on the floor, would never have believed that even in death he'd become a tool for others to earn spirit stones. Within half a day, the entire trading city, as well as the human race territory and the demon clan territory, heard the astonishing news. The infamous god of slaughter, Bai Li Tu, had been slain inside Tianbao Hall. The moment the news broke, the whole trading city exploded in uproar. Chapter 53. Everyone's guesses, hearing of the 5 states for the first time. At this moment, after barely half a day, everyone in the entire trading city heard astonishing news. Bai Li Tu, known as the god of slaughter by the divine wilderness forces, had been killed inside the Tianbao Hall. As soon as this news broke, the entire trading city was instantly shaken. Inside a luxurious room, Lung Alfing and Zhe Rao listened to the guard's words, their faces filled with shock. They could hardly believe their ears that Bai Li Tu, who had just forced them into a miserable retreat, was actually killed inside the Tianbao Hall. The man whom even an immortal emperor couldn't stop was killed in such a short time. Hearing the guard's report, Lung Alfing immediately took Zhe Rao and flew rapidly toward the Tianbao Hall. By the time Lung Alfing and Zhe Rao arrived at the Tianbao Hall, the entire place was overcrowded, surrounded 3 layers deep inside and out. After finally managing to enter the Tianbao Hall, Lung Alfing frowned slightly upon seeing Bai Li Tu lying on the ground in a strange posture, his face etched with terror. At this moment, the owner of the Tianbao Hall was discussing something with a few people. Finally, after seeing those people toss the owner a storage ring, they immediately grabbed Bai Li Tu's feet and dragged him outside. Suddenly, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Bai Li Tu's corpse actually shattered inch by inch. Even his clothes turned to dust. His entire body, like a stone that had been burned for a long time, instantly crumbled into powder and scattered into the air the moment external force touched it. At this moment, everyone widened their eyes, watching everything before them, and many began making speculations. Unlike the atmosphere at the Tianbao Hall, Xingchen held Luo Qingshan's hand, happily strolling along, as if the incident just now had not affected them at all. Checking the time, the two, having walked around, decided to find a restaurant to eat and rest. The two arrived at a busy restaurant, requested a private room on the 3rd floor with a window, ordered some signature dishes, and then Xingchen took out a bottle of supreme divine wine. They began eating cheerfully. Luo Qingshan had never felt as relaxed as she did today. Although some unpleasantness occurred midway, it didn't affect their mood. Looking at Xingchen, Luo Qingshan's eyes were full of smiles. Sometimes Luo Qingshan thought that her husband and she might truly be a destined match, which was why Xingchen ended up in her bathing area. She had gone from initial caution to complete devotion. Luo Qingshan could feel her husband's deep affection for her, and this was the most relaxed she had been in years. Since Xingchen arrived in the Yao race, the entire Yao race had undergone tremendous changes. Luo Qingshan had never asked about her husband's background. Only out of curiosity had she asked how strong his power truly was. But that rascal deliberately misunderstood her, causing her to sell herself to him. Thinking of this, Luo Qingshan looked shyly and gazed at Xingchen with increasing tenderness. Suddenly, many exclamations came from the 2nd floor below, clearly heard by the 2 people near the window. "Brotherly, did you hear? Something major happened. Have you heard about Li Tu, the one called the god of slaughter of the divine wilderness? He was killed by someone at the Tianbao Hall. I heard he turned directly into powder. Not a single bone remained." "What? Bai Li Tu was killed? How is that possible?" This person had a fortuitous encounter and received the legacy of a supreme being. His speed was so great that even an immortal emperor couldn't detain him. How could he have been killed? Did he offend a great emperor? The man called Brother Li said to the person beside him. "Ah, Brother Li, why is it impossible? This news has spread throughout the entire trading city, and soon the whole divine wilderness will know." Furthermore, according to the Tianbao Hall owner's speculation, Bai Li Tu might have hit a steel plate this time, offending a disciple from a hidden world giant holy land, which is why he was killed instantly. I heard his entire body turned into powder. Besides those hidden world giant holy lands, who else has the power to make Bai Li Tu, whom even an immortal emperor was helpless against, die in such terror? Hearing this person's words, Brother Li's eyes also widened involuntarily. A hidden world, giant Holy Land disciple? If it really was a powerhouse from a hidden world, giant Holy Land, then this definitely makes sense. Did the Tianbao Hall owner say what the hidden world, giant Holy Land disciple looked like, or what their cultivation was? Hearing Brother Li ask, that person spoke up with a look of surprise. The strange thing is this. When the Tianbao Pavilion owner recalled the incident afterward, he was horrified to find that he absolutely could not remember the man's appearance or strength. It was as if the person had never appeared. He only clearly remembered that beside the man was an unforgettable, peerless woman. Hearing this person's words, Brother Li was slightly startled and said, that does sound like the style of a hidden world, giant Holy Land. But why would a hidden world, giant Holy Land come to our trading city? Could it be also for the Yao race auction in a few days? It must be true. The Yao race is auctioning off a divine item that can extend life by 50 years. Which force on the entire divine wilderness continent wouldn't want it? The hidden world, giant Holy Lands are naturally no exception. Hearing Brother Li's words, the man spoke. But speaking of auctions, I heard that the Jubao Pavilion is holding a large-scale auction tomorrow. All the major forces arrived early today. They will attend this auction and then head to the Yao Race's Wandan Pavilion. Brother Li, let's go check out tomorrow. I heard all the major forces are here. Even the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace has arrived. This is one of the few top-tier forces in the divine wilderness composed entirely of women. I heard every disciple possesses peerless beauty. Should we go take a look? Yi Xingchen and Luo Qingshan were too lazy to listen to the rest, but Yi Xingchen had developed an interest in tomorrow's auction. So, looking at the smiling Luo Qingshan, he said, Wife, have you heard of this Jubao Pavilion? Yes, the Jubao Pavilion is one of the wealthiest forces on the divine wilderness continent, and its power is extremely formidable. Excluding our Yao race, they have branch pavilions in every state on the divine wilderness continent. Their headquarters is in the central Emperor province. Every time the Jubao Pavilion holds an auction, major forces attend. It's considered a grand event. Luo Qingshan raised her head and glanced at her husband, her face slightly flushed with embarrassment. She then looked at Yi Xingchen and continued. Luo Qingshan participated once when I went to the human race for experience. Later, I became busy with Yao race matters, and coupled with the general shortage of spirit stones in the Yao race, I haven't attended for a long time. But the scene is indeed grand. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Yi Xingchen became slightly more interested. Remembering what Luo Qingshan had said, Yi Xingchen asked, Wife, what exactly are the states you mentioned? Hearing her husband's question, Luo Qingshan giggled and said sweetly, Luo Qingshan is starting to doubt whether husband is even human race. Did you really fall from the sky? Looking at her husband's silly, smiling face, Luo Qingshan then gently explained. Our divine wilderness continent has been divided into 5 great states since ancient times. Eastern State, Southern Emperor State, Western Buddha State, North Immortal State, and the most prosperous Central Emperor Province. The states are far apart and require teleportation arrays to reach. Our Yao race belongs to the Eastern State. According to ancient legends, in primeval times, the Eastern State was the most powerful state on the divine wilderness continent, known as the Eastern Divine State. Luo Qingshan sighed softly before continuing. Now, however, is the weakest of the 5 states. In every competition between the great states, the Eastern State is always at the bottom, and because it always ranks last, it cannot reclaim its primeval name, Eastern Divine State. Hearing Luo Qingshan's somewhat emotional words, Yi Xingchen felt slightly curious and asked, Wife, what is this competition between the great states that you mentioned? Hearing her husband inquire like a curious baby, Luo Qingshan smiled gently. Every 3 years, the forces of the great states gather in the Central Emperor Province for an important competition. This competition involves the most top-tier prodigies from each state who are under 30 years old. The top 30 disciples are ultimately selected to enter the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking. Just now at the Tianbao Hall, husband saw that Divine Blade Immortal Palace disciple, Lung Alfing, who is a prodigy ranked 20th on the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking, possessing the heavenly immortal realm. Even so, Lung Alfing has reason to be proud. There are countless prodigies under the age of 30 across the entire divine wilderness continent. The fact that Lung Alfing can stand out and rank 20th proves his status as a prodigy. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Yi Xingchen instantly lost interest and asked, The important competition you mentioned is just to compete for a ranking on the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking. That doesn't seem very important. Seeing her husband's expression, Luo Qingshan, who understood his personality, smiled mysteriously. The words that followed made Yi Xingchen's eyes light up, filling them with excitement. Chapter 54. Ancient God Cemetery, System Check-in. At this moment, upon hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen's eyes immediately lit up, his face filled with excitement. Seeing her husband's excited expression, Luo Qingshan charmingly rolled her eyes at him, then said, "The triennial competition between the various provinces is a grand event across the entire Divine Wilderness continent. All young prodigies under 30 years old will head to Central Province to participate in this grand event. Disciples who can enter the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking will not only bring their factions massive amounts of spirit stones, but also gain access to the ancient God Cemetery to seek great opportunities." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen's eyes brightened, and he immediately asked, "Ancient God Cemetery?" Indeed, the ancient God Cemetery is the burial ground of deities from ancient times. It contains countless opportunities and immortal medicines, divine treasures, divine weapons, and ancient techniques are innumerable. However, the danger within is also extremely high. At least half of the prodigies who enter will perish inside. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen immediately asked, "Wife, with such a divine tomb and countless opportunities within, how can the major powers of the divine wilderness resist entering it?" Hearing her husband's words, Luo Qingshan's eyes showed a smile, and she looked at Xingchen with tender affection. "My husband is indeed clever. That's right, when the ancient God Cemetery first appeared, a strange phenomenon descended from the heavens. Infinite divine light illuminated the heavens, causing a huge sensation. All factions rushed to Central Emperor Province at the fastest speed. The powerhouses of all factions saw glittering divine light, and various immortal medicines and divine treasures emitting dazzling divine radiance from the entrance of the ancient God Cemetery. These powerhouses surged in like madmen. However, they were blocked by a mysterious and powerful energy. No matter what methods the powerhouses of the various factions used, even some factions brought out their clan-protecting divine artifacts. They still couldn't break through this mysterious and powerful force. Finally, after research by the powerhouses of the major factions, it was discovered that only those whose bone age did not exceed 30 could enter, and each time the ancient God Cemetery opened, it was only for 10 days. And their strength could not be too low. Ultimately, after discussions among the major factions, the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking came into being, held once every 3 years, hosted by the Heavenly Tao sect, the most powerful faction in Central Emperor Province. Because the age limit for entering the Divine Tomb is 30, the God Wasteland Heaven's Pride ranking also only selects 30 individuals. Only those on the ranking can enter the ancient God Cemetery to seek opportunities. Later, as time went on, disciples on the ranking continuously entered it. Some prodigies died and were buried within. Some prodigies obtained great opportunities and soared to prominence. So many years have passed, and every disciple who entered and came out alive obtained great opportunities. Some became great cultivators, guarding a region and enjoying boundless glory. Some became sect masters, leading tens of thousands of people and receiving their reverence. However, an even more explosive piece of news rocked the entire divine wilderness after the last ancient God Cemetery event ended. Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen actually felt a sense of anticipation and asked, "Explosive news that shook the entire divine wilderness. Wife, quickly tell me, what is it?" Hearing her husband's question, Luo Qingshan smiled mysteriously, then directly said, "Within the ancient God Cemetery, there is the secret to becoming a god." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen was slightly stunned, then murmured to himself, "Secret to becoming a god?" Hearing her husband murmur to himself, Luo Qingshan smiled slightly and said, "Husband, in half a year, the disciple battles between the various provinces will begin. Are you interested in taking the Yao race disciples to see and participate? As for the so-called secret to becoming a god, do you want to investigate it yourself?" Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Xingchen smiled slightly. Seeing the smile in his wife's eyes, he immediately understood. He nodded slightly and said, "Such an interesting matter. Husband will definitely participate. The secret to becoming a god. Interesting." Xingchen vaguely felt that his current Heavenly Emperor realm was not the highest realm, and there must be a more powerful realm above the Heavenly Emperor realm. Just like the ancient legends of the Divine Wilderness Continent, powerhouses above the Great Emperor realm on the Divine Wilderness Continent all went to higher-level worlds. Xingchen believed these legends were not groundless. Perhaps there truly was the secret to becoming a god within the ancient God Cemetery. How could he miss such an interesting event? Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan smiled softly. She had thought correctly. Her husband would definitely participate. After the two had dinner, remembering that they still had to attend the Jubao Pavilion auction tomorrow, they didn't continue to wander around. They directly left Trading City and returned to Dan Pavilion. The next morning, Xingchen slowly opened his eyes and found that Luo Qingshan was no longer beside him. With a slight smile, Xingchen knew without thinking that his wife must have gone to inspect and see how Dan Pavilion's preparations were coming along. After getting up and washing, Xingchen came to the window and looked at Trading City in the distance. Although it was still early, he could already see blurry figures. Remembering that his wife should be back by now, Xingchen recalled that he hadn't checked in today and immediately spoke to the system. System, begin today's check-in. As soon as Xingchen finished speaking, the system's voice rang out. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. 1 million high-grade immortal stones, already stored in the system space. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. Primordial Exquisite Bracelet. The Primordial Exquisite Bracelet, a divine rank bracelet, an item for women to wear. In ancient times, an unparalleled giant collected divine stones from beyond the heavens and primordial treasure pearls to refine it for his wife. When a woman wears it, evil retreats, water and fire do not touch, and all poisons are ineffective. It comes with a divine ability that allows it to change size at will. When enlarged, it can be both offensive and defensive, innately standing in an invincible position, unbreakable by anyone below the Great Emperor realm. When shrunk, it can transform into a divine weapon, killing people invisibly, undetectable by anyone. It is a divine rank treasure that integrates offense, defense, and containment. Ding, the system is checking in. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward. 1 Great Emperor Guard card. Great Emperor Guard card, usable only by the host. After use, an unparalleled powerhouse of the Great Emperor realm will appear, absolutely loyal to the host, obeying any of the host commands, doing anything for the host, and will never betray them. At this moment, Xingchen, standing by the window, listened to the system's voice, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled upwards. The system actually rewarded him with another Great Emperor Guard card, adding the 10 Immortal Emperor Guard cards. The hidden power he now possessed was comparable to the top factions of the Divine Wilderness. Thinking of this, Xingchen had an even bolder idea. Since he now knew that the Divine Wilderness continent was divided into 5 major provinces, and Central Province was the most powerful and prosperous one, perhaps he could do some things in advance. However, these matters could not be completed in a short time. He still had a lot of time and was not in a hurry for these 1 or 2 days. With a slight smile, Xingchen looked at the primordial exquisite bracelet in the system space. The entire bracelet was jade white. Looking at the bracelet emitting a crystalline divine light, Xingchen smiled happily. He would find an opportunity to give this gift to his wife. She would definitely like it. He was just thinking about what gift to give his wife, and the system immediately rewarded him with a divine grade bracelet, possessing such powerful abilities. Such a divine grade bracelet was the only one in the entire Divine Wilderness continent. How could Xingchen not be happy? After checking the time, Xingchen knew that Luo Qingshan should be back soon. Sure enough, after a while, Luo Qingshan happily came to Xingchen's side and said, "Husband, you're awake." Luo Qingshan thought you were still sleeping in. Looking at Luo Qingshan's happy expression, Xingchen smiled slightly, took her hand, and said softly, "We're going to the auction today. How could husband sleep in?" Seeing wife's happy look, the matters at Dan Pavilion must have been handled well. With Grand Elder here, and some disciples sent from the race, we are now just waiting for the major factions to arrive. Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan smiled slightly and said softly, "Since that's the case, wife, let's set off. This time, you can bid on anything you like. Don't worry about not having spirit stones. With husband here, wife can bid with confidence." Looking at Luo Qingshan, Xingchen's eyes were full of doting affection. Hearing her husband's words, Luo Qingshan was touched, and her beautiful eyes, looking at Xingchen, were filled with tenderness. Chapter 55. Major powers arrive, auction begins. At this moment, Xingchen and Luo Qingshan gazed into each other's eyes, filled with deep affection, and their feelings for each other grew deeper and deeper. The scene shifted to outside the Jubao Pavilion in the human race territory. The Jubao Pavilion was now bustling with people, with major powers arriving one after another. Even forces from the other 4 states gradually appeared. Above the Jubao Pavilion, in the Void Realm, powerful auras continuously descended, signaling the arrival of experts from various major forces. One could even hear dragon roars and phoenix cries in the Void Realm, which were powerful mounts with divine beast bloodlines circling in the Void Realm. Outside the Jubao Pavilion, many onlookers had occupied advantageous positions, although they didn't have enough spirit stones to participate in the auction within the Jubao Pavilion. However, being able to witness the grandeur of the top forces from the 5 states of divine wilderness was still a feast for their eyes. Suddenly, everyone felt their vision darken. Looking up, a massive divine eagle, its body like flames, radiating red divine light, flew towards the Jubao Pavilion from the Void Realm above. Look, it's the blazing divine eagle. It possesses the bloodline of the ancient divine beast Kuimpung, has a massive body, and is extremely fast. It's a unique mount of the top force, the beast-controlling sect. It must be the experts from the beast-controlling sect of North Immortal State who have arrived. A sharp-eyed onlooker said excitedly to the person next to him. Indeed, in the next moment, several disciples wearing beast-controlling sect attire, led by a middle-aged man with a dignified face, entered the Jubao Pavilion. After a moment, wafts of fragrance drifted by. In the distance, a massive warship covered in fresh flowers traversed the Void Realm. From afar, one could smell a faint fragrance like a warm breeze sweeping through a sea of flowers, making people feel intoxicated. The sight of this massive warship covered in fresh flowers caused countless exclamations. Look, that flower warship! If I'm not mistaken, it should be the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. This is one of the few top forces in the Divine Wilderness continent composed entirely of women. An onlooker proudly said to the person next to him. Seeing no reply, he turned his head, only to find everyone around him staring excitedly in the direction of the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, their eyes filled with fervent desire. The next moment, dozens of stunning women in pink robes flew down from the warship and entered the Jubao Pavilion. Did you see that? As expected of the top force of Central Emperor Province, the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace. Every disciple is radiant and charming, with a unique temperament, and each one is powerful with impressive cultivation, the lowest being at the immortal realm. A powerful loose cultivator among the onlookers, his eyes burning with desire, looked at the disciples of the Myriad Flowers Divine Palace and said with a lewd smile, those are too young. That leading woman is even more exquisite. Look at her delicate features, perfect figure, and mature temperament. Which one doesn't make people utterly enchanted and intoxicated? The companion next to the man chuckled and said to him. Hearing his companion's words, the man's lewd smile grew wider. He turned to look in the direction of the Jubao Pavilion, his eyes gleaming with a strange light. Seeing the smile on his companion's face, the companion immediately said to the man, I advise you not to think too much. Just enjoy the sight. The Myriad Flowers Divine Palace is not someone you and I can afford to offend, especially that leading woman. She is the Lord of the Divine Palace of Myriad Flowers Divine Palace, Empress Hua Shuyan. Her strength is immense, her aptitude is astonishing, and her luck is even heaven-defying. She once had an ancient fortuitous encounter, and despite her young age, her strength has already broken through to the immortal Emperor realm. With such strength, she could easily crush you and me with a single finger. Don't do anything foolish. Looking at his companion, the man said with a serious expression. Hearing his companion's words, the man with a lewd smile nodded indifferently, as if he hadn't heard a word his companion said. Seeing his companion like this, the man helplessly shook his head and said no more. His words were enough. Whether the other could listen was his business. Whatever the consequences, he would bear them himself. As time passed, the top major forces from various states arrived one after another, astonishing countless people. Look, those are the people from the top force of Southern Emperor State, the Great Yin Dynasty. That's the strongest force in Central Emperor Province, the Heavenly Dao Sect. They actually came too. That's the Xingchen Palace. Huangfu Bubi actually came in person. And the people from Xiantian Sect of Eastern State, Sect Master Nangong Liuyun, personally led the team. Look, there are also the Buddhist sect disciples from Western Buddhist State. They actually came too. It seems they are also here for this Yao race auction. At this moment, the auction time was drawing closer and closer. Xingchen and Luo Qingshan had also arrived in front of the Jubao Pavilion. Looking at the 5-story, vast and lavishly decorated Jubao Pavilion, Xingchen sighed slightly, remarking that human race architecture was still much more magnificent than that of the Yao race. At the same time, he gained a new understanding of the Jubao Pavilion. Such luxurious decoration and exquisite carving were impressive, but what was most shocking was that the entire building of the Jubao Pavilion was made entirely of ancient wood. This ancient wood constantly emits immortal spiritual qi and is extremely expensive. This shows how wealthy the Jubao Pavilion is truly deserving its reputation as the richest force in the divine wilderness continent. Luo Qingshan and Yi Xingchen slowly entered the Jubao pavilion hand in hand. Along the way, although they did not ride powerful ancient boats or flying mounts, they still attracted countless gazes. Luo Qingshan wore a magnificent palace gown, gentle as moonlight, her elegant demeanor exuding an innate noble temperament. Although she wore a veil and her face was unclear, one could still discern Luo Qingshan's noble beauty. Yi Xingchen also possessed an unparalleled temperament and handsome appearance. His calm expression and the unintentional aura of a superior emanating from him also made people feel Yi Xingchen's extraordinary nature. As the two entered the Jubao pavilion, a beautiful woman immediately stepped forward to greet them, respectfully asking, "Two distinguished guests, this servant, Lu Yan, is a maid of the Jubao pavilion. Do the two distinguished guests wish to go to a private room on the 5th floor or the hall below the 4th floor? A private room requires 100,000 top-grade spirit stones, while the hall only needs 10,000 top-grade spirit stones." Hearing the maid, Liu Yan's words, Yi Xingchen smiled slightly and said, "Then lead us to a private room. It's too noisy outside." Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Liu Yan's smile became even more respectful. After all, those with the means to enter a private room were not people she could offend. She bowed slightly and respectfully said, "Please follow me, distinguished guests." With that, she turned and led Yi Xingchen and Luo Qingshan up to the 5th floor into a luxurious private room. The decoration of the entire private room was also extremely opulent and grand. "Please rest for a while, distinguished guests. Feel free to enjoy the various spirit fruits and tea in the private room. The auction will begin soon. If the two distinguished guests need anything, please contact Lu Yan at any time. This servant will be waiting outside the door." Lu Yan finished speaking, bowed again to the two, then turned and closed the door as she left. The two walked to the window of the private room, and a massive auction stage below instantly appeared in their eyes. From inside the private room, one could easily see the situation outside, but from outside, one could not see into the private room. Even divine sense could not penetrate it. This was the unique feature of the auction's private rooms. Looking at the bustling crowd in the hall below, Yi Xingchen pulled Luo Qingshan to sit on a soft chair and softly said, "The decoration of this Jubao pavilion is truly luxurious and grand, worthy of being the richest force in divine wilderness. My dear wife, is the Jubao pavilion auction always this lively?" Hearing her husband's words, Luo Qingshan smiled charmingly and softly said, "Not really. The Jubao pavilion suddenly held this auction because they likely knew that major forces would come to our Yao race's auction. They specifically organized this temporary one, aiming to ride on the coattails of our Yao race's auction and make a profit." Hearing Luo Qingshan's words, Yi Xingchen also smiled helplessly and said, "As expected of the Jubao pavilion, their business acumen is simply brilliant. No wonder they can become the richest force in divine wilderness." Suddenly, a gentle yet resonant voice rang out. A smiling elder came onto the platform and announced, "Welcome, everyone, to this auction held by the Jubao Pavilion. I am the Grand Elder of the Jubao Pavilion, Mo Wuhan. I believe everyone is already clear on the rules of the Jubao Pavilion. If anyone is found to be bidding maliciously, or if any force or individual does not have enough spirit stones to pay in the end, I apologize, but this elder will have to keep you in the Jubao Pavilion. Only after your respective forces pay the spirit stones will you be allowed to leave. Furthermore, from then on, any Jubao Pavilion auction in any state of divine wilderness will no longer welcome that force or individual." After Mo Wuhan finished speaking, terrifying auras rose within the Jubao Pavilion, causing everyone to feel a surge of pressure. It was the auras of several immortal Emperor Realm experts, presumably the immortal Emperor experts of the Jubao Pavilion. Just a single branch has so many immortal Emperor experts, truly worthy of being the Jubao Pavilion, the richest force in divine wilderness. Seeing the reactions below, Mo Wuhan nodded with satisfaction, then smiled and said, "I won't babble on. I now announce that the auction officially begins. First item for auction, the Lily Azure Treasure Seal." As soon as his voice fell, a beautiful woman with a fiery figure walked out, holding a wooden box in both hands. Upon hearing Mo Wuhan's words, including Luo Qingshan, the entire Jubao Pavilion seemed to explode instantly. Everyone stood up in shock. Countless people exclaimed, "It's actually it, the Lily Azure Treasure Seal." Chapter 56, Lily Azure Treasure Seal, Heavenly Tao Treasure. At this moment, everyone inside Jubao Pavilion, including Luo Qingshan, sprang to their feet in shock at Mo Wuhan's words. Countless people cried out in alarm. It's actually it, the Lily Azure Treasure Seal. Seeing Luo Qingshan's stunned expression and hearing the exclamations echoing through Jubao Pavilion, Xingchen smiled faintly. Interest instantly piqued. Wife, why so excited? Does this Lily Azure Treasure Seal have some extraordinary origin? Husband, this seal's fame stretches across the entire divine wilderness. It's anything but ordinary. Hearing her husband's question, Luo Qingshan finally came back to her senses, her pretty face flushing as she felt a little embarrassed. She'd been so shocked she'd stood up without thinking. Only a hermit like you could possibly have never heard the name Lily Azure Treasure Seal. She shot him a coquettish glare and continued. This seal was the personal magic treasure of the ancient great emperor, the Lily Empress. During the primordial war of gods and demons, it stole every spotlight. Every demon race warrior paled at the sight of it. Even hearing its name made their hearts tremble. Forged from a wisp of heavenly Tao's own will, it's one of the rarest divine objects capable of restraining the demon race, and its power is immense. It can transform into a colossal seal to crush foes. After that ancient war ended, the Lily Empress vanished, and the Lily Azure Treasure Seal disappeared without a trace. Xingchen frowned slightly. Even if the seal is mighty and counters the demon race, it's still just one divine object. Why are so many people stunned, even crying out? Looking at Luo Qingshan, he voiced the doubt in his heart. Indeed, every attendee of Jubao Pavilion's auction represented the divine wilderness's absolute top powers. Each clan's guardian divine artifact was no weaker than the Lily Azure Treasure Seal. Many were far stronger, so such an uproar made no sense. Luo Qingshan gave a gentle laugh. Husband truly sees straight to the crux. If that were all, no one would be so shocked. But the Lily Azure Treasure Seal has another, far greater function, and that is the true reason for everyone's astonishment. She looked at him and went on, its greatest role isn't how well it restrains the demon race. The seal itself is the key to opening the heavenly Tao treasure. Heavenly Tao treasure? Xingchen's eyes lit up. Exactly. The Lily Empress was a supreme great emperor, yet her own aptitude was merely average. She reached the great emperor realm in under 2 centuries, and the biggest reason was the heavenly Tao treasure. At the time, the news shook the entire divine wilderness. Later, when the war began, the Lily Empress, fearing her legacy might be lost, declared she had explored only a tiny portion of the heavenly Tao treasure, and that the sole key to opening it was the Lily Azure Treasure Seal. She had planned, after the war, to join the divine wilderness's mighty to open the treasure together, but then she disappeared. No one knows where she went. The seal vanished as well. Who could have guessed Jubao Pavilion obtained it, and is now auctioning it? No wonder everyone is stunned. Glancing at the still stupefied crowd below, Luo Qingshan added, presumably Jubao Pavilion has spent years quietly searching for the treasure's location and found nothing, or they wouldn't put the key up for sale. After all, only the Lily Empress herself knew where the heavenly Tao treasure lies. Hearing this, Xingchen formed a plan. My illusion-breaking divine, I can pierce every veil and return things to their essence. Perhaps I can locate the heavenly Tao treasure myself. With that thought, his eyes sharpened. Watching Luo Qingshan gaze out the window, he asked softly, Wife, do you want to bid for the Lily Azure Treasure Seal? Luo Qingshan rolled her eyes at him and answered in a gentle voice. Husband, let's not even think about it. Although no one knows the location of the heavenly Tao treasure, the Lily Azure Treasure Seal is still far beyond our reach. The spirit stones needed could be called an ocean. Our Yao race has saved some spirit stones, but it's absolutely not enough. Looking at her husband, Luo Qingshan offered a helpless smile, a trace of resignation, reluctance, and loss flashing in her eyes. Seeing the resignation, reluctance, and loss in Luo Qingshan's eyes, Xingchen merely smiled and said gently, Wife, do you remember what your husband said yesterday? At today's auction, bid on whatever you want. With your husband here, you don't need to worry about spirit stones. Hearing Xingchen's words, Luo Qingshan's eyes lit up as she looked at him, but dimmed in the next instant. She shook her head, gave him a soft smile, and murmured, This Lily Azure Treasure Seal is too precious. I don't want it. Hearing her words, Xingchen naturally knew what she was thinking. He gently took Luo Qingshan's hand, leaned to her ear, and said affectionately, In your husband's eyes, everything in this world is not worth a single strand of your hair. Every divine treasure is worth less than your gentle smile. We are one as husband and wife. No need to divide you and me. Hearing such heartfelt words, how could Luo Qingshan endure it? Moved to tears, she threw herself into Xingchen's arms and said excitedly, Husband, I'm so happy. I love you so much. The moment Luo Qingshan finished speaking, her veil slipped off. She lifted her head and shyly looked at Yi Xingchen, as if heaven and earth would last forever, as if seas could dry and rocks could crumble. Their feelings sublimated at this moment, the red thread of fate binding them tightly, locked forever.